Chapter 905. As the Yuan sphere fused into Yi Chen's body, the black hole rapidly dispersed, and the third layer of sky instantly recovered. Below, Yi Chen's aura soared to the point that even the third layer couldn't obstruct him. King Grey Jin Yuan is indeed worthy of being called King Grey Jin Yuan. In terms of quality, it has increased by 5 times. Under life and death realm, even if one's talent is at the peak, it would still be extremely difficult to make up for the gap in Jin Yuan. Only a few people in 1,000 years could accomplish such a feat. Straightening his right palm as a blade, Yi Chun casually slashed. Poochie! A pitch-black crack appeared in the space, and spatial power pervaded the air. Condense. Yi Chen's space profound had reached 50% completion, allowing him to easily maintain the crack. The pervading spatial power condensed at the edge of the crack, forming a simple frame. Puff! The space's recovery ability was simply too powerful. After 3 breaths, the crack was mended, and the spatial power condensed into a frame was dispersed once again. The amount of spatial power I controlled just now was a bit less. If I had more, I should have been able to maintain it for a longer time. Shaking his head, Yi Chen's gaze once again fell on the masked man. The masked man didn't run, for he was clear that it was useless. Yi Chen's battle strength was at least upper 3 stars, perhaps even peak 3 stars. His previous battle strength was mid 3 stars, but now it had fallen to lower 3 stars. How could he escape? Once he did, he would die without a doubt. He didn't think Yi Chen would let him go. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you can escape, I might let you live. Ordinary life and Death King's soul power perception range was 10,000 li. Using some secret soul arts, they could increase it to 100,000 li. As long as they escaped the range, it would be very difficult to chase them. However, Yi Chen was different. Yi Chen's soul eyes could see everything within 1 billion li. Even if the masked man escaped to true spirit continent, Yi Chen would still be able to find him. Hearing these words, the masked man's expression changed greatly. Yi Chen, don't make a mistake. I can give you 3 days to consider. The masked man was anxious. 1. Yi Chen coldly counted. Yi Chen, you'll regret this. The masked man opened his eyes wide and roared. 2. Run. The masked man's scalp went numb. Thunder and fire burst out of his body, turning him into a ball of thunder and fire that drilled into the void. Then, he flew away at a speed that surpassed his limits, not caring about the damage to his body. Yi Chen didn't do anything, allowing the other party to escape. 3. Raising the sky Scorpio sword, Yi Chen slashed out. A transparent ripple swept into the depths of the void. In the next moment, 100,000 li away, the masked man was directly swept out by the spatial ripple and sealed in a purple mirror, unable to move. However, his eyeballs could still move, glaring at Yi Chen viciously while cursing. I gave you a chance, but you didn't have the ability to grasp it. The reason why Yi Chen gave the masked man 3 breaths of time was to verify his usage of space profound after reaching life and death realm. He didn't really intend to give the masked man a chance. Bang! The purple mirror shattered, and the masked man was shredded into a bloody mist by the berserk spatial fragments, thoroughly dying. Space profound can disregard spatial distance within a certain range. 100,000 li is no different from a few hundred li for me. However, the prerequisite is that my soul power and Jin Yuan are strong enough. Letting out a breath, Yi Chen understood how frightening a life and Death King would be once they grasped the space profound. Fortunately, his space profound was not weaker than the majority of life and Death Kings. The number of life and Death Kings with a space profound above his might be less than a handful. His figure flickered as Yi Chen dove into the void. If the space power was like a berserk blade to Yi Chen before, it was now like a stream of water, unable to break his protective Jin Yuan and injure his body. Shuttling through the void, Yi Chen found Iron Arm King and Beard King's storage rings, then the masked man's. As for Grey Bird King's storage ring, it was in the outer space and had been collected by Yi Chen a long time ago. Breaking through the spatial barrier, Yichen once again appeared above the ocean. Life and death realm is indeed powerful, but my harvest is not limited to soul power and Jin Yuan. The moment he broke through to life and death realm, Yichen's green lotus sword arts had already risen from low heaven grade to mid-heaven grade. The speed of his Jin Yuan circulation was inconceivably fast, and his cultivation speed had also increased by 3 times. With a low-rank heaven realm cultivation technique, one's cultivation speed would be 3 times faster than those without it. In other words, other life and death kings could only obtain 1 year's worth of cultivation base after cultivating for 1 year, while one could obtain 3 years' worth of cultivation base. However, with the green lotus sword arts, he could obtain 9 years' worth of cultivation base after cultivating for 1 year, which was 9 times faster than those without a heaven realm cultivation technique. With a casual circulation of green lotus sword arts, Yichen could feel the surging heaven and earth yuan qi pouring into his body, rapidly transforming into Jin Yuan. Of course, the heaven and earth yuan qi was too thin for life and death realm kings. It was not as dense as when one was undergoing life and death calamity, only 1,000th of the density. Therefore, relying on cultivation techniques to recover Jin Yuan was not too realistic and would be very slow. Unless one could find a blessed land where the heaven and earth yuan qi was dozens or even hundreds of times denser than the outside world, it would be more feasible. As Green Lotus Sword Arts advanced, Sword Domain, which was based on Green Lotus Sword Arts, also advanced. Originally, Yichen's Sword Domain was at the peak of the first layer. But after Green Lotus Sword Arts broke through to the mid-heaven grade, his Sword Domain reached the second layer, and his sword rule doubled. The sword pressure was incomparably powerful. Without any exaggeration, an ordinary life and death king would be frozen in place by this sword pressure and be at the mercy of others. After reaching the second layer of Sword Domain, Yichen could no longer comprehend the extent of his battle power. Of course, it was impossible for him to reach 4 stars. The gap between each star was huge. For example, if one were at the peak of 3 stars, they would be easily defeated by a 4-star king. However, there were some people whose strength was infinitely close to 4 stars, even though they were the peak of 3 stars. Such people possessed the strength of a 3-star tyrant. For example, Copper Sword King possessed the strength of a 2-star tyrant. Not a single 2-star life and death king could last more than a few moves against him. He could contend against a low 3-star king, and even if he couldn't win, he had a great chance of escaping. According to the ease with which he killed the masked man, Yichen estimated his strength to be at least at the peak of 3 stars. As for whether he had the strength of a 3-star tyrant or not, he would have to verify it a few more times. No rush. After entering life and death realm, I can enter the state of one with the world at any time, and my profounds will advance by leaps and bounds. Once my profounds advance to a certain level, I can no longer advance any further. Then, I can create an even more powerful sword move. 4-star battle strength should be in the bag. 4-star battle strength was equivalent to a peak king. However, Yichen had just entered life and death realm, and there were many aspects that he had yet to improve. This and not being able to improve at all were 2 different things. Open. The silver vertical eye on his forehead opened once again, and Yichen gazed in the direction of Blood Sky Continent. Blood Sky Continent, Iron Blood Region, Eternal Sky Sect. Yichen could see Li Zhongfeng, Gao Ziyuan, and the rest. They were all either cultivating or chatting. There was nothing happening in the surroundings, and there was no danger. Turning his head, Yichen gazed in the direction of True Spirit Continent. Sky Cloud Sect and Yi family were developing at an extremely fast pace. Their numbers had multiplied by several folds, and their experts were numerous as well. Moreover, through his soul eye, Yichen could even see a layer of mysterious fate circulating in the sky above Yi family and Sky Cloud Sect. This fate was hard to see through even with his soul eye, and he could only see traces of it. Fortunately, there is no movement for the time being. I'll go into seclusion for a while and comprehend the profounds. After making sure that everything he cared about was safe and sound, Yichen calmed down. As for Dragon God's celestial palace, Yichen refrained from looking. Although his current strength seemed very powerful compared to some of the more powerful kings, he was still a lot weaker. Once his strength reached the point where he could no longer increase it within a short period of time, he would pay a visit to Dragon God's celestial palace and see what was happening there. Being so far away, he could only see the scene but not hear anything. Inside the palace at the bottom of the sea, a few blood-colored stones at the end of the long table suddenly dimmed. Chasing Thunder King and the rest have all failed. Was it killed by Yi Chun or by someone else? The black-skinned figure creased his brows and wrapped his fingers on the table. If it was killed by Yi Chun, then he has already broken through to life and death realm. To be able to do so in such a short period of time, his potential is bound to surpass Battle King and Xianhou. If it was someone else who saved him, then it means that he has yet to break through to life and death realm, and there is still a chance. These pieces of trash are really making me worry. Forget it. Relying on these trash is useless. It's best if Horned Demon makes a trip there. This kind of genius, every day we keep him alive is one more day of danger. If we give him a few dozen years to grow, I'm afraid even the resurrection of the lords will have more twists and turns. He had no tolerance for the peak geniuses of Elysium. A few dozen years ago, they couldn't find an opportunity to kill Xianhou. After a few dozen years, Xuanhou's strength was already not something they could kill even if they wanted to. Even if he personally took action, he would only have 70 to 80% chance of defeating Xianhou. However, to say killing the latter, it was not too likely. Almost no one with 5-star battle strength could kill Xianhou. The other party's mysterious Dao was something he deeply understood. His finger flicked and a bloodlight shot out, landing on a blood-colored stone nearby. Buzz! The stone blossomed with radiance, and a blood figure with a long horn on its head appeared. "What's the matter?" the horn-blood figure asked. The black-skinned expert let out a breath and said, "Yi Chun might have entered life and death realm. His strength is at least upper 3-star, or even peak 3-star. We can't let him grow any further. Find an opportunity and kill him. As for whether some kings will discover our existence, we can't care so much. In any case, they have already sensed us, entering life and death realm. Truly a big problem." The horn-blood figure continued, "We have the demonic power of this world, which is incompatible with this world. As soon as we appear, we will inevitably be discovered. Since you said so, I'll kill him. Don't worry, I'll quickly deal with this matter and hide in the depths. I believe they won't be able to sense too much." "All right," the black-skinned expert nodded. Chapter 906. At the same time, the entirety of Elysium underwent a huge change. Not long after Yi Chun passed the life and death calamity, 7-colored heavenly flowers fell from the sky of Elysium, covering every corner of the world. Be it ordinary people, martial artists, humans, or other races, as long as they were awake, they could see the heavenly flowers falling and disappearing without a sound. In the underwater palace, 7-colored heavenly flowers also fell. Heavenly flowers falling. King is born. He has indeed entered life and death realm. A cold light flickered in the black-skinned expert's eyes as he said word by word. The horn-blood figure pondered for a while, then said, "After becoming a king, one can enter the state of being one with the world at any time and form a connection with Elysium. Elysium will more or less react to it. However, not every life and death king will have the phenomenon of heavenly flowers falling. Only a few geniuses with astonishing potential who can influence the future will have the phenomenon of heavenly flowers falling when they break through to life and death realm. There are 4 levels of heavenly flowers: white flower, 3-colored flower, 5-colored flower, and 7-colored flower. The number of people who can reach 7-colored flower is less than 2 in 1,000 years. This kid can influence the future. Regardless of whether it's big or small, he must be eliminated. I'll leave this matter to you." The black-skinned expert instructed the horn-blood figure once again. The blood figure said, "Don't worry, I've already contacted Nine Nether. His Nine Nether great art can reflect this kid's shadow. We'll be able to find his traces in a short time. Nine Nether has appeared. The black-skinned expert's eyes brightened. Indeed, he contacted me on his own. However, he has already changed into a new body, and his battle power has yet to recover to its peak. The heavens are helping us. Although Nine Nether's battle power at his peak is not inferior to mine, his greatest use is his Nine Nether great art. If he had appeared earlier, perhaps this kid would have already been eliminated, and there would be no need to go to war. The black-skinned expert sighed. Then, I'll take my leave first. After saying that, the horned blood shadow's body dissipated, and the light on the blood-colored stone dimmed. Nine Nether, it's been a few decades. I wonder what you become now. If you had listened to my advice back then and kept a low profile, you wouldn't have been hunted down by the Dragon King and Shinho. In the end, even your body was destroyed, the black-skinned expert thought. What beautiful flowers! Ye family. The two teenage boys and girls stopped cultivating and stretched out their hands to catch the rainbow-colored heavenly flower that was falling from the sky. The rainbow-colored heavenly flower looked like it could not be touched. It directly passed through their palms and landed on the ground, disappearing without a sound. Xiao Xiao, don't you feel that these rainbow-colored flowers are very familiar to us? There seems to be something familiar on them, the handsome youth said to the girl. The girl was still young, but she was already slender and elegant. She nodded and said, I also find it strange. The rainbow-colored flowers give me a feeling like Big Brother. You also have this feeling? The teenager was amazed. Chaotic Demonic Sea, Lotus Demonic Island. It's Yichun. The rainbow-colored heavenly flower fluttered in the air, bathing Murong Qingchen. Wearing a gorgeous black robe, the beautiful demonic human emperor walked over and said, I don't know if he's your little lover or not, but if you don't work hard, you won't even have the qualifications to catch up to him. The demonic human emperor sighed with emotion. It had only been a few years since they parted, but the little ant from before had already grown into an expert at her level. Although his battle strength was still much weaker than hers, at least they were at the same level. If he was given more time, there would be very few people in this world who could do anything to him. She was somewhat glad that she didn't become enemies with Yichun back then. Otherwise, she would have gained another great enemy in the future. Of course, if she chose to become enemies, she wouldn't let Yichun escape. Teacher, Murong Qingsheng turned around and said with a trace of respect, in the past few years, the demonic human emperor had been wholeheartedly helping her increase her strength. Without him, she wouldn't have been able to reach the peak of the third layer without entering the life and death secret realm. Let me tell you something. Your little lover has already been targeted by otherworldly experts. The demonic human emperor faintly nodded and said something that worried Murong Qingsheng a lot. Someone from the demons? Murong Qingsheng clenched her fists. Yeah, but don't worry. Your little lover is still alive, which means that his survival ability is very strong. That deluge of heavenly flowers just now was most likely him entering life and death realm. So, you don't need to worry too much. Entering life and death realm as soon as possible is what you need to do. The demonic human emperor told Murong Qingsheng this matter because she wanted her to feel a great sense of urgency. As for why she wanted Murong Qingsheng to become stronger, apart from not wanting her talent to go to waste, she also hoped that the demonic human clan would have one more person who could speak for them. It would be very difficult for her to protect the demonic human clan in the turbulent future by herself. I will enter life and death realm. Murong Qingsheng heavily nodded, her bright eyes filled with determination. All right, continue your cultivation. The demonic human emperor turned around and left. Before leaving, the demonic human emperor inwardly thought, why do I have a feeling that Qingsheng can affect the fate of the demonic human clan? Could it be because of him? Shaking her head, the demonic human emperor's figure flickered and disappeared from the Lotus Demonic Island. In the depths of the boundless void, there was an unknown secret realm. In the forbidden area of the secret realm, inside the golden pond, a naked figure drilled out of the water. The golden water submerged her towering twin peaks, making them faintly discernible. Her wet, long hair draped over her shoulders, making her skin look even more exquisite and fair. Extending her hands, the woman tried to catch the rainbow-colored flower. However, the rainbow-colored flower passed through her palms. Junior brother Yi, you finally entered life and death realm. The woman was precisely Su Jing. A joyous expression appeared on her face, and her whole body seemed to have relaxed a lot. I also need to increase my realm as soon as possible. Her body drilled down. Su Jing once again dived into the golden pond. Her snow-white feet streaked across the surface of the water, making one's heart beat faster. The black-skinned expert could sense that Yi Chun had entered life and death realm because he had arranged this operation. Yi Xian and Yi Xiaoxiao could faintly sense that it was Yi Chun because they were close relatives of Yi Chun. As for Murong, Qingxing, and Su Jing, it was because they had an unbreakable connection with Yi Chun. Apart from them, there was another person who knew that the rainbow-colored flower phenomenon was caused by Yi Chun. She was none other than Xianhou. The mysterious path was a very mysterious martial path. Beside the pond, Xianhou did not catch the rainbow-colored flower. This rainbow-colored flower was the manifestation of Elysium's great Tao. It could be seen, but not touched. It was an incorporeal existence, just like the rules. Old Dragon King, you can rest assured now. Yi Chun has already grown up. In the future, he will be one of the main characters. Those otherworldly experts might have to be cleaned up one by him. Who knows, in this generation, he might be able to restore Elysium to its ancient glory. Bending down, she continued to feed the fish. Xuanhou's figure blended into the scenery, as if it had become an ink painting. The whole world's experts were shocked. Several decades ago, the rainbow-colored flower had appeared once. At that time, Xianhou appeared out of nowhere and became a world-famous peak king in a short period of time. Who would it be this time? The rainbow-colored flower phenomenon lasted for a quarter of an hour before disappearing. However, nobody noticed that a black and white sword scar had pierced through the whole of Elysium, forming a connection with the sky sword at the center of Sky Sword Continent. The sky sword faintly trembled and let out a sky-shaking sword cry, seeming to be an angry roar. However, it had no choice but to restrain itself. In the Sea of Soul Realm, one would enter the state of being one with the heavens for a short period of time with each minor realm. After entering the life and death realm, one could enter the state at any time and comprehend profounds would advance by leaps and bounds. Although profounds were harder to comprehend in the later stages, one mustn't forget that Yi Chun's soul was 10 times that of a life and death king's. In theory, his comprehension ability was also 10 times that of ordinary people. Therefore, in a short half a month of seclusion, Yi Chun's profounds had made huge progress in all aspects. First was the space profound. Space profound was one of the strongest profounds, and its difficulty was several times that of ordinary profounds. Therefore, the progress wasn't too exaggerated. However, with the foundation of 4 extreme Emperor Space Profound, it had also reached 70% completion. Next was the Metal Profound and Water Profound, which went from 90% completion to greater completion, only a step away from perfection. Of course, this step was the most difficult. Many people would spend decades or even hundreds of years, but still couldn't raise any of their profounds to perfection. Yi Chun's comprehension ability was 10 times that of others. Under normal circumstances, it would still take him several years, or even 10 years. Next, his wood profound rose from 60% to 90%. His speed profound rose from 50% to 80%, and his shadow profound rose from minor success to 70%. Finally, even his slowness profound, which was extremely difficult to comprehend and had no reference, broke through from minor success to 50%. With the advancement of profounds in all aspects, Yi Chun's battle strength naturally rose along with it. Before, he couldn't tell whether his battle strength was peak 3-star or Overlord 3-star. But now, he was sure that his battle strength had already reached 4-star. 4-star was the equivalent of a peak king. Of course, peak kings had different levels of strength. Yi Chen's current strength wouldn't be at the bottom of the 4-star kings, but it wasn't very likely for him to be peak 4-star or Overlord 4-star. My space profound has reached 70% completion. I'm afraid that bewitching mirror shattering won't be able to use the 70% space profound to its limit. It's time to create a new space profound sword move. Bewitching mirror shattering was extremely powerful. Right now, it would be quite difficult for Yi Chen to create a space profound sword move that was even more powerful than bewitching mirror shattering. However, before that, Yi Chen decided to merge bewitching mirror shattering and the uncreated second space profound sword move into one sword art. This sword art would focus on the space profound. Let's call it the sky shattering sword art. Yi Chen immediately thought of a name and decided on it. Chapter 907. Sky shattering sword arts and autumn water sword arts. These two sword arts use the space profound as the core, while the metal and water profound as the core. They were also the three profounds that Yi Chen would cultivate in the future. As for vibrational sword arts, it was a bit unique. It could be considered a skill-based sword art. The first style, Sky Cutting Sword, walked the path of vibrational power. The second and third styles would only become more and more powerful, which was equivalent to the evolved version of Sky Cutting Sword. Wanting to create the second style of sky-shattering sword arts was much more difficult than creating the second style of autumn water sword arts, congealing water. Space Profound was one of the strongest profounds. 70% Space Profound was equivalent to 120% ordinary profounds. What kind of sword art could perfectly accommodate 70% Space Profound? Yi Chen had no idea. He could only take it one step at a time. Who knew? He might have some new inspiration along the way. Bewitching Mirror Shattering first seals and then kills the enemy, which actually weakens its lethality. The second style should focus on its lethality. Yi Chen soon determined the path of the second style of sky-shattering sword arts. But before that, I'll first restore my cultivation base to its peak. It was too difficult for Life and Death Kings to restore Jin Yuan. The Jin Yuan of a Life and Death King was 10 times that of a high-level half-step king, and 5 times that of a peak third-layer life and death chamber. The purity of Jin Yuan was frighteningly high, and the conversion rate of heaven and earth Yuan into Jin Yuan was naturally very low. On the other hand, the cultivation base of life and death kings was at least dozens of years, and at most hundreds of years. Taking Yi Chen, for example, his Jin Yuan was a dozen times more than before, reaching 100 years of cultivation base, not to mention those life and death kings with hundreds or even thousands of years of cultivation base. Therefore, if life and death kings wanted to quickly restore Jin Yuan, they could only rely on external objects, such as supreme Great Spirit stones or Jin Yuan crystals, or even find a blessed land. In this half a month, Yi Chen had always been in the state of being one with the world. He didn't deliberately circulate green lotus sword arts to refine the heaven and earth Yuan. Therefore, his Jin Yuan hadn't completely recovered yet. Taking out a huge pile of supreme Great Spirit stones, Yi Chen began refining them. 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. After spending a total of 200,000 extreme rank spirit stones, Yi Chen's cultivation base had finally reached the 100-year level. He then continued to circulate his green lotus sword spell, completing 108 great circulations, imprinting his own Jin Yuan with his own aura. In the future, as long as he didn't lose too much of his cultivation base, he would still be able to recover quickly. After cultivating for 100 years, Yi Chen did not stop. 2 million Jin Yuan crystals flew out of the storage ring, piling up in front of Yi Chen like a small crystal mountain, dazzling. These Jin Yuan crystals did not reach the standard of low-grade Jin Yuan crystals. 5 of them were equivalent to 1 low-grade Jin Yuan crystal. However, they won in quantity. If he wanted to increase his cultivation, he would need to have a strong mental state. Mental state included control. Without enough control, even if you had so much cultivation base, you wouldn't be able to control it. And the Jin Yuan that couldn't be controlled would automatically dissipate, unable to be stored in the body. However, treasures that could increase cultivation base were few and far between. Everyone could increase their cultivation base slowly, so there was no situation where they couldn't control it. As time passed, Yi Qin's cultivation base increased rapidly. 110 years of cultivation base, 120 years, 150 years. 2 million Jin Yuan crystals had increased Yi Qin's cultivation base to 150 years. However, Yi Qin didn't feel the slightest burden. His mental state seemed to be able to control more Jin Yuan. Jin Yuan crystals have been used up, and supreme grade spirit stones have been used up by 200,000. Right now, he only had 850,000 supreme grade spirit stones left in his storage ring. Although supreme grade spirit stones were not as precious as low-grade Jin Yuan crystals, they still had a third of the effect. 850,000 of them were enough to increase his cultivation base by 30 years. I'll refine them first. In for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound. Yi Qin prepared to turn the remaining supreme grade spirit stones into his own cultivation base. In the end, Yi Qin's cultivation base reached 180 years, and he only had 130,000 supreme grade spirit stones left. Yi Qin didn't intend to use them all. He wanted to keep some in his hands. Who knew? They might come in handy in the future. Supreme grade spirit stones were the common currency among life and death kings. Huff! Letting out a breath, Yi Qin stood up and stretched his body. Now, it's time to create the second style of sky-shattering sword arts. Creating sword moves was different from comprehending profoundness. Comprehending profoundness was comprehension, while creating sword moves was application. Comprehending profoundness and not being able to use it was useless. Comprehending profoundness and being able to use it was the martial way, the sword way. The great Tao was formless, but the martial Tao and sword Tao were tangible. Nine Nether, I haven't seen you for dozens of years, but you're getting younger and younger. In the depths of the void, two black figures stood there. One was a ferocious-looking man with a horn on his head and a height of more than 3 meters. The other was a youth who looked to be only 15 years old. However, his eyes were blue and captivating, making it difficult for others to look at him directly. The youngster smiled. Horned Demon, you've been hiding in the dark for so many years. Don't you feel bored? Although bored, it's very safe. Not necessarily. I heard you've already changed several strongholds. How many is it this time? Although I've lost my main body and changed to a new one, the rules of Elysium no longer reject me. Give me time, and I'll be able to recover to my peak. Even reaching 6-star battle strength is quite possible. But you only have 4-star battle strength right now. One Shinho can kill you. The fiendish man gave the youngster a blow. Hee, I'll definitely take revenge, but not now. Speak, who do you want me to find? The youngster didn't want to argue and asked. Yi Qin, you should know. It's him. No wonder. I've heard of him before. The youngster nodded. Bring me to the place where he appeared before. I need to search for his aura before I can find him. Let's go. The fiendish man's figure flashed and flew out. The youngster followed closely behind. Half an hour later, the two of them arrived above the sea. There were many blood-robe guards standing guard here. Seeing the fiendish man arrive, the blood-robe guard in the lead flew over and respectfully greeted. Lord, is this the place? The fiendish man asked. Yes, the remains of Lord Greybird King are also here. All right, you can leave first. Nine Nether, you can start. The fiendish man looked at the youngster. Of course. The youngster's expression turned serious. He closed his eyes and then suddenly opened them. Nine Nether souls search. A blue radiance spread out with the youngster as the center, covering a radius of several hundred li. In the next moment, countless tiny specks of light gathered. These specks were all different, roughly divided into 5 types. After classifying the 5 specks of light, the youngster found the speck that belonged to Yi Qin. This speck of light emitted a sharp aura, obviously left behind by a swordsman. That's him. The fiendish man recognized the specks of pursuing Thunder King, Beard King, Iron Arm King, and Gray Bird King. The remaining speck was naturally Yi Chen's. Good. After collecting his aura, it'll be much easier to find him. While speaking, the youngster withdrew the blue radiance he released and wrapped around Yi Chen's aura, forming a glowing blue sphere. The sphere floated in the air as if it was weightless. 9 nether souls search. The youngster shouted and spat out a mouthful of demonic energy onto the sphere. Swish! After receiving the replenishment of energy, the sphere streaked across the sky and shot into the distance. Follow it and we'll find Yi Chen. After flying out, the youngster turned his head and said to the fiendish man, "The 9 nether great art is indeed mysterious." The fiendish man praised inwardly and chased after the youngster. The speed of his sphere was increasing with every passing moment, and every 2 hours, the youngster would spit out a mouthful of demonic energy onto the sphere so that its energy wouldn't be exhausted. Almost there. Compared to the beginning, the sphere's speed had increased by 3 times. The aura belonging to Yi Chen inside was surging, as if he was a traveler in a hurry to return home. On the nameless island, Yi Chen brandished his sword again and again. Every swing followed the trajectory of the spatial fluctuation. He gradually had an idea of the second style of the heaven-shattering sword art. The profound of space was the most profound, and there were thousands of ways to use it. Following the trajectory of the spatial fluctuation would allow the sword's speed to reach the speed of teleportation. Within a certain distance, one could completely ignore the distance between the 2 sides. Once the sword was swung, the opponent would immediately be hit. If the opponent's defense wasn't strong enough, they would naturally be killed. Apart from that, following the trajectory of the spatial fluctuation could also allow the sword energy to be more concentrated without any loss. However, up until now, Yi Chen had not been able to match the path of his sword with the path of the space ripple. He had never trained any kind of teleportation martial art before, so it was naturally very hard for him to do so. He could only try again and again. Occasionally, when he took a wrong path, he would have to immediately pull himself back and start again. However, compared to the beginning, Yi Chen had improved a lot. His sword's trajectory was gradually approaching the spatial fluctuation's trajectory. Sometimes, there would be a sword that completely matched the spatial fluctuation's trajectory, and its destructive power was unimaginable. It was countless times stronger than bewitching mirror-shattering and congealing water. Why do I sense an aura that belongs to me approaching? Suddenly, Yi Chen stopped practicing and turned his head to look into the distance. Open. The vertical silver eye on his forehead opened as Yi Chen looked over. Is it this blue ball of light? What the vertical silver eye saw was transmitted into his mind. Yi Chen's attention first fell on the blue ball of light. It was this blue ball of light that contained his aura. Yi Chen's eyes narrowed. In a short while, 2 figures and a blue ball of light flew over. It's him. The youth waved his hand, and the blue ball of light dissipated, turning into blue light that merged into his body. The aura inside also instantly dissipated between heaven and earth. These 2 aren't from this world. Yi Chen could tell with a single glance that the demonic aura emitted by the youngster and the fiendish man was different from Murong's demonic aura. The former two's demonic aura was incompatible with this world, while Murong's didn't give off such a feeling. Chapter 908. Otherworldly Demons. Yi Chen was not an idiot. He instantly guessed the identity of the 2. Demons were not the only ones who came to Elysium. However, otherworldly experts who cultivated demonic power were only demons, and demons were the most ferocious otherworldly race in Elysium. 2 demon kings of demons have come to find me. They really think highly of me. Yi Chen did not sense any sense of danger from the 2, which meant that their battling power had not reached the 5-star level yet. If they were, the first thing he would do would be to run away, since the difference between a 5-star and a 4-star battle power was way too huge. While Yi Chen was sizing up the fiendish man and the youngster, the latter and the youngster were also sizing up Yi Chen. Something is wrong. Compared to a life and death king, this kid's cultivation base is frighteningly deep. It's at least twice as deep. The youngster's bright blue eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. His blue gaze fell on Yi Chen's body, and he immediately estimated Yi Chen's cultivation base. This estimation left him greatly astonished. Normally, 50 years of cultivation base for someone who had just entered life in Death Realm was already not bad. Xianhou only had 90 years of cultivation base. However, Yi Chen's cultivation base had clearly surpassed 150 years, approaching 200 years. How could he know that Yi Chen had directly refined more than 2 million Zhen Yuan crystals and 720,000 supreme grade spirit stones, forcibly increasing his cultivation base by 80 years? Yi Chen, right? Today, you will die without a doubt. But to be able to live until now, you have some skill. The fiendish man had a pair of curved horns with spiral patterns on them. They were extremely sharp, and as he spoke, 2 cold lights flickered at the tips of the horns. Before life in Death Realm, you couldn't kill me. Now, it's even more impossible. Although your strength is high, I'm afraid you don't have 5-star battle strength, right? Yi Chen indifferently smiled, not fearing anything. Oh, it seems like you are very confident. Do you think that just because I'm a 4-star warrior, I can't kill you? The young man's lips curled up as he taunted. Whether or not you can kill me, you'll know once you try. The young man looked at the fierce-looking man. Horn demon, we're being looked down upon. Stand guard at the side. Don't let him escape. The fierce-looking man said indifferently. All right. Crossing his arms over his chest, the young man retreated to the side. Yi Chen, before you die, you are qualified to know my title. My title is Demonic Horn. Die. The fierce-looking man didn't waste any more words. After reporting his title, his figure flashed like a black lightning bolt, instantly closing in on Yi Chen and punched out. Magic Fist. It was the same demonic race martial skill as Murong Qingsheng, but in the hands of the fiendish man, the demonic power was compressed to an even higher degree. With a single punch, a straight path appeared in the space, and the fist energy spread out in all directions. The sky Scorpio sword in Yi Chen's hand trembled, emitting an ear-piercing sound. Yi Chen raised his sword to meet the attack, using vibrational sword arts. With a 5th-step spirit body and a life and death king's control over Zhen Yuan, the might of vibrational sword arts at this moment exceeded Lan Sanmei's annihilation chop by countless folds. Space-shattering. Rumble. The fist and sky Scorpio sword collided, and the two were sent flying back. For star battle strength, the fierce-looking man cried out in alarm. No wonder you were so arrogant. Turns out your battle strength has reached 4-star. The young man was also somewhat astonished. 4-star battle strength was not that easy to reach. According to this world's classification of strength, one would be a peak king. However, there were not many peak kings in Elysium, and each one was famous. Mid 4-star battle strength, not bad, not bad. Unfortunately, it is still not enough. The killing intent in the fierce-looking man's eyes intensified. That punch just now could easily injure a low 4-star king. For Yi Chen to receive it, his battle strength had clearly reached mid 4-star. Let's see if you can receive this punch or not. The fiendish man shouted and threw another punch. The fist energy brought with it a violent phantom of a demonic dragon. It shook its head and wagged its tail, and its claws and teeth were sharp. It was not hard to imagine that this demon race martial art was above the demonic power fist. It was the unique skill of the fiendish man. Yi Chen neither retreated nor dodged, and once again raised his sword to meet the attack. This time, he used congealing water. Before his profound improved, Yi Chen's battle strength was at most a 3-star tyrant. However, after his space profound reached 70% completion, and his metal profound and water profound reached greater completion, his battle strength had clearly reached mid 4-star. If not for congealing water, which prevented him from bringing out the full might of his metal profound and water profound, Yi Chen's battle strength would have continued to increase. Punk! The demonic dragon phantom collided with the extremely condensed sword energy. The demonic dragon phantom crumbled inch by inch, and Yi Chen's congealing water sword energy also dissipated like smoke in thin air. Both sides were still evenly matched. Horn Demon, bring out your true skill. This kid's strength is quite strange. The youngster frowned. True skill? That's fine. I've never fought with a demon king of demons. Probing is not a bad thing. Yichin coldly gazed at the fierce-looking man and pointed the sky Scorpio, sword downward, spitting out a purple sword light. Battle strength nearing late 4-star. The fierce-looking man admitted that he had underestimated Yichin. This kind of genius that surpassed Xianhou simply couldn't be calculated with common sense. After entering life and death realm for a month, his battle strength had already reached mid 4-star, which was simply a miracle. If given some time, wouldn't he be able to reach 5-star or even 6-star battle strength? I can't let him leave alive. The fierce-looking man made up his mind. Even if he had to pay a certain price, he had to keep Yichin here. Roar! Bending his back and clenching his fists, the fierce-looking man's body erupted with boundless evil, demonic power. The demonic power soared into the sky, and a power that didn't belong to this world immediately collided with Elysium's heaven and earth yuan qi, giving rise to a gloomy scene. His body quickly swelled and deformed. Dense black scales appeared on the surface of the fierce man's skin. Bone spurs grew out of his elbows and knees. A long black tail also extended out of his tailbone. The tail was like a whip, very flexible and powerful. At the end of the tail was a triangular spike like the tip of a spear. The biggest change was in the fierce-looking man's arms. Not only were they twice as long, they were also several times thicker than his thighs. His explosive muscles were brimming with frightening power. It's a bit like the demonization of demonic human clan. Yichin was starting to understand why the demonic human race could turn into a demon. It was obviously a special ability inherited from the demon race. He wondered how much more powerful the demon race's transformation would be compared to the demonic human race's transformation. Swish! After the transformation was completed, the fierce-looking man's body moved and disappeared. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Yichin, and his fist enlarged in Yichin's eyes. So fast, Yichin was startled. After the transformation, the fierce-looking man's strength had increased by several times. Just now, Yichin's soul power hadn't been able to capture his movements. Clang! Raising the sky Scorpio sword horizontally, Yichin blocked the fierce-looking man's fist, causing sparks to fly everywhere. Spurting out a mouthful of blood, Yichin retreated dozens of li. This fist had caused him some light injuries. If it weren't for the sky Scorpio sword in his hand, he definitely wouldn't have been able to escape. He died. After the transformation, the fierce-looking man's battle power had increased by a level. Originally, he was at mid 4-star battle power, but now, he was at high 4-star battle power. Moreover, his movement and attack speed were much faster than ordinary kings with high 4-star battle power. He could completely suppress kings at the same level. Swish! The fierce-looking man disappeared once again, appearing on the right side of Yichin. Sword domain. High 4-star battle power. Yichin could barely handle it. However, he still had the sword domain, which had reached the second layer. Its sword pressure was incomparably powerful, and it could slow down the opponent. The fierce-looking man's movements were somewhat out of shape. Just as he swung his fist, it met with an invisible obstruction. With no time to lose, Yichin suddenly turned his body sideways and thrust his sword out. Sword domain made his sword extremely fast, turning it into a purple ray of light. Dream on! The fierce-looking man's fist loosened, and he grabbed the tip of the sky Scorpio sword, holding it tightly. Whoosh! Yichin sneered. Activating the vibration sword arts, the sky Scorpio sword started vibrating at a high frequency. His palm turned numb. The fierce-looking man couldn't help but loosen his hand, and Yichin's sword stabbed into his chest, leaving a deep hole. However, it was blocked by the bones inside. So hard, Yichin didn't dare to be greedy. He immediately pulled out his sword and retreated. Puff! A black hole appeared where Yichin had been standing. The fierce-looking man's left fist slowly retracted. He actually has a fighting ability that can compare with us demons. The fierce-looking man's face was grave. Under the situation where their strengths were about the same, they would compete in terms of fighting ability. Fighting ability included many factors, such as experience, reaction, and instantaneous choice. The wound on his chest healed. This kind of injury was nothing to the fierce-looking man. Demons' demonic bodies were even more powerful than spirit bodies. Moreover, he was currently in his transformed state, so his defense was extremely strong. Yi Chen's sword energy couldn't reach other parts of his body unless it was powerful to a certain extent. Demons are indeed frightening. Yi Chen was very clear about the power of that sword. Although it was grabbed by the fierce-looking man's palm, the remaining sword energy was enough to injure human kings at the same level. However, judging from the fierce-looking man's expression, it seemed like he didn't care about it at all. Demons were a race higher than humans, and their innate advantage was obvious. Under the situation where their battle strength was equal, the demons would definitely have the advantage, such as physical defense. His sword domain should have reached the second level. From afar, the youngster was watching the battle between Horned Demon and Yi Chen. Horned Demon's battle strength was, without a doubt, high 4-star. After using sword domain, Yi Chen also had the strength to contend against Horned Demon. Of course, the situation was still in Horned Demon's favor. Sky Scorpio Sword's crystal power is about to run out. Lowering his head to look at Sky Scorpio's sword, Yi Chen sighed with emotion. Before breaking through, he had been in danger several times and had no choice but to use the crystal power of Sky Scorpio's sword, greatly reducing its power. Just now, if Sky Scorpio Sword's crystal power was extremely powerful, he didn't believe that the fierce-looking man would be fine. After creating the second style of heaven-shattering sword arts, I should study the sword forging technique. The supreme-grade materials I have are enough to forge a supreme-grade sword, not inferior to Sky Scorpio Sword. Chapter 909. Horned Demon, do you want me to make a move? It seems like you can't take him down by yourself. The youngster suggested. The fiendish man raised 3 fingers. 3 moves? If I can't take him down in 3 moves, then you can make a move. Right now, you just have to watch out for him to escape. As the demon king of demons, the fiendish man had his own dignity. To him, taking down Yi Chen was not a strenuous thing. Since it was not strenuous, why would he want to win by quantity? All right. The youngster nodded and did not make a move. Sizzle. Between the fiendish man's horns, a powerful electric current suddenly surged out. The 2 sharp horns with spiral patterns seemed to be electrified, glowing and heating up. With Horned Demon as his title, the pair of curved horns on the fiendish man's head were naturally extraordinary, containing a powerful demonic power. The demonic power flowed back into the fiendish man's body, and his demonic aura immediately doubled. The black scales on his body also faintly turned red, as if they had been roasted by fire. Demonic dragon battling heaven's secret art. The fiendish man roared as he pulled his right fist to the back of his head and abruptly punched out. A huge black dragon phantom roared as it charged towards Yi Chen, leaving a hideous crack in the space. His battle power has increased again. Yi Chen did not dare to be careless. He raised the Sky Scorpio Sword, and an invisible spatial ripple swept towards the huge dragon phantom. After his space profound reached 70% completion, although bewitching mirror shattering couldn't bring out the space profound to its peak, its power had increased by several times. The moment the huge dragon phantom came into contact with the spatial ripple, it was immediately sucked in, as if it had entered another world. Roar! The huge dragon phantom was extremely powerful. Even though it was sealed in the purple mirror, its body could still move. It swam around and struck everywhere, creating cracks on the purple mirror, as if it could rush out at any time. Crack! The purple mirror suddenly shattered, and the violent spatial fragments cut the huge dragon phantom's body, rapidly reducing its power. By the time the huge dragon phantom passed through the spatial fragments, its power was already less than 30% of its peak. It was chopped into 2 halves by Yi Chen's sword, turning into black air currents and returning to heaven and earth. Second move, Tyrant Dragon Fist. This time, the fiendish man didn't release a dragon phantom, but a dragon phantom that was several times larger than the dragon phantom. The dragon phantom was as big as a small mountain, and when it opened its mouth, it seemed as if it wanted to devour the entire world, bringing with it a powerful suction force. Yi Chen's clothes fluttered in the wind. He moved his feet and was pulled over by the suction force. Sword domain. With a low roar, the sword pressure outside, Yi Chen's body increased to the limit, contending against the dragon head's suction force. At the same time, he slashed 3 times on the dragon head's body. Clang, clang, clang. 3 deep sword scars appeared on the front of the illusory dragon head. At such a close distance, Yi Chen's vibrational sword spell had an unimaginable power. However, the illusory dragon head was not a normal demon race martial art, as its structure was very reasonable. Yi Chen's vibrational sword power could not completely tear apart the illusory dragon head. The suction force increased, and Yi Chen's entire body was sucked into the dragon head's mouth. Success. Seeing this, the fiendish man slowly let out a breath of turbid air. Yi Chen's difficulty was beyond his expectation. Fortunately, although his battle prowess was at the peak of 4 stars, when he used the Horn of Demons ability, it didn't reach the peak of 4 stars. However, this was because he forcefully entered Elysium and his body was injured. Outside of Elysium, his battle prowess was at the peak of 5 stars. The martial art of the demons that he created was very exquisite. Horn of Demon, I didn't expect your Tyrant Dragon Fist to become so exquisite. In the past, you weren't someone who liked details. The youth was slightly surprised and smiled. The fiendish man said, entering Elysium by force, we were all severely injured. It's fine if our battle prowess is high. We can make up for the lack of details. But now that our battle prowess has dropped to 4 stars, we naturally need to ponder on the details. How can we better display our battle prowess without any flaws? That's true. However, your Tyrant Dragon Fist still can't kill him. The youth glanced at the dragon head's image that was still charging at him and said, Tyrant Dragon Fist has a perfect spiral inside, which can consume a large amount of his Zhen Yuan. With his less than 200 years of cultivation, he won't be able to last long. The fiendish man was very confident in his Tyrant Dragon Fist. Perhaps it couldn't do anything to those with slightly higher battle prowess than him, but it was definitely the nemesis of those with lower strength. Chi. Just as the fiendish man was speaking, a glowing crack suddenly appeared on the dragon head's image. In the next instant, the crack expanded and a human figure jumped out. Impossible. The fiendish man's eyes froze. The arrangement of the Tyrant Dragon Fist's demonic power was very tight. It was hard to destroy it from the outside, not to mention from the inside. Without exaggeration, if a peak 4-star king was accidentally sucked into the dragon head's image, they wouldn't be able to come out for a while, not to mention Yi Chen, who only had a high 4-star battle prowess. Nothing is impossible. Don't forget that he is the most outstanding genius in the last 10,000 years. Anything can happen to him. The youth squinted his eyes, and a blue light condensed into 2 beams of light. You take a sword of mine as well. After splitting apart the dragon head's image, Yi Chen's figure extended, and his clothes fluttered in the wind as he slashed at the fiendish man. The sword aura was light as a feather, without any trace of smoke or fire. Swoosh! The fiendish man was immediately hit by the sword, and a deep sword wound appeared on his chest. His left arm was also severed by the sword Chi, which then turned into a bloody mist. Sky-shattering sword art's second style, orbit kill. To be more precise, it was an incomplete orbital kill. The complete orbital kill allowed the sword's trajectory to coincide with the spatial ripples, making the sword move as if it was teleporting. Its power and speed were both perfect without the slightest loss. However, Yi Chen had yet to reach such a realm. He could only make the sword's trajectory follow the spatial ripples as much as possible. Even so, it was still enough to tear apart the dragon head's image and instantly injure the fiendish man. Without this incomplete orbital kill, as the fiendish man had said, Yi Qin's Jin Yuan would have been consumed by the tyrant dragon fist, and he wouldn't have the slightest strength to counterattack. Only when the fiendish man's left arm was severed did the fiendish man and the youth react. Ah, like a wounded wolf, the fiendish man roared with a sinister expression. What a frightening sword art! The youngster sucked in a breath of cold air. He didn't expect that Yi Chun had already started to create even more powerful space, profound sword moves. Creating a profound martial skill was not something that could be done in a day or two. Although a king who had just entered life and death realm would have a huge improvement in their profounds, creating a profound martial skill that suited them would require at least a few years, or even decades. Of course, life and death kings had a lot of time, and this amount of time was nothing. However, Yi Chun had only entered life and death realm for a month, yet he was already researching a new space profound sword move. How could he not be astonished? The other party's creation ability was simply monstrous. What a pity! Yi Chun shook his head. Just now, he actually wanted to chop off the fiendish man's head. However, the sword's trajectory didn't coincide with the spatial ripples, resulting in a slight deviation. It should be known that space was extremely mysterious, and a slight deviation could lead to a great loss. It was already not easy for Yi Chun to control the deviation to within 1 meter. Forget it, they are demons. Let's probe a bit more. In the future, when I fight other powerful demon kings, I'll know myself and the enemy better. Demonic beasts, demonic humans, and half-beasts. Yi Chun was very clear about their abilities. However, he knew very little about the demons that weren't from Elysium. Therefore, this battle was not a meaningless one. As his flesh wriggled, the sword wound on the fiendish man's chest and his missing left arm rapidly healed. Raising his head, he looked at Yi Chun with a cold and merciless expression. "Nine Nether, let's kill him together," the fiendish man said to the youth. The youth smiled. "It's just 2 moves. If he wasn't a genius from Elysium, I wouldn't mind fighting with him. But now, it's better to kill him as soon as possible. Our aura has been spread out by the will of heaven and earth. Soon, the experts in this world will be alerted." The fiendish man was very calm and didn't fly into a rage. "Hee, horn demon, why don't you work for me? Blackstone's strength wasn't stronger than mine. In terms of some methods, he's not as good as me. If you follow me, I can guarantee that you'll get more than him." The youth admired the fiendish man's cautious character and had the intention to recruit him. The fiendish man curled his lips. Let's kill him first. For him, Nine Nether was a madman. It was safer to follow Blackstone. But now, he naturally couldn't reject Nine Nether's recruitment, lest the other party cause trouble. "All right, I know you don't want to follow me, but I will let you know who is better to follow." The youth seemed to have seen through the fiendish man's mind and didn't care. "You want to join hands to deal with me? Seems like I have to go." Yi Chun didn't think that he could fight against the 2 of them together. Even a peak 4-star king wouldn't be a match for the 2 of them. Only a 4-star tyrant would be able to defeat them. Tyrant Dragon Fist, 9 Nether Heaven Lock. The fiendish man and the youth attacked without hesitation. One blasted out a huge dragon head phantom, and a suction force appeared. The other drew a circle with his hands, and a blue light flooded the sky and sealed the space. One inside and one outside, perfectly coordinated. Obviously, they had worked together before and weren't unfamiliar with it. Unfortunately, even though they attacked fast, Yi Chun was even faster. His body flashed as Yi Chun's whole body merged with the space. Before the blue light disappeared, Yi Chun's speed was unbelievably fast, as if distance didn't exist. Not good. He has already used the space profound in his movement art. It will be hard to trap him. The youth's expression changed as he chased after Yi Chun. "Isn't your 9 Nether Heaven Lock very powerful in sealing enemies?" The fiendish man was anxious. No, although the 9 Nether Heaven Lock also contains the space profound, it needs a long time to seal an enemy with a powerful space profound. The 2 followed closely behind Yi Chun, one in the front and one in the back. However, Yi Chun's space profound had reached 70% completion. As he moved through the void, the space power became his driving force, increasing his speed. Soon, The two of them lost sight of Yi Chun. Chapter 9:10. Nine Nether Souls Search. The youngster's face was a bit unsightly. The blue light spread out, collecting Yi Chun's aura and wrapping it in a blue light ball. Puff! A mouthful of demonic power was spat out, and the blue light ball chased after Yi Chun's aura. The youngster and the fiendish man followed behind, neither of them saying a word. He's right in front. The youngster was a bit strange. In his opinion, Yi Chun shouldn't have stopped. After a while, the two's faces became more and more unsightly. Yi Chun had obviously found the flaw of Nine Nether Soul Search. Along the way, he left behind a Zhen Yuan afterimage. This Zhen Yuan afterimage contained very little Zhen Yuan and didn't have much fighting power. However, it still had Yi Chun's aura. Nine Nether Soul Search could only sense aura, not life fluctuations. Thus, it naturally lost its effect. After shattering Yi Chun's Zhen Yuan afterimage with one punch, the fiendish man said in a low voice, he still escaped. It's my mistake. If I had known earlier, I would have sealed the space and stabilized it. In fact, the youngster suspected that even if he had used 9 Nether Heaven Lock to stabilize the space, he might not have been able to stop Yi Chun. That sword move of Yi Chun's contained an unimaginable power. It's not your fault. I was also careless. The fiendish man was deeply worried. The current Yi Chun was even more troublesome than Xianhou. The battle with Yi Chun just now made him understand that with their strength, even if they planned meticulously and went all out, they still wouldn't be able to kill Yi Chun. At most, they would be able to injure him. He had never thought that in such a short time, a small ant had grown to a point where they couldn't do anything. Sigh, if my strength had recovered a bit more, perhaps the ending wouldn't have been like this. The youngster sighed and continued. Blackstone was too cautious and lost the only chance to kill him. If he had gone all out from the start and personally attacked, the situation wouldn't have developed to this point. The fiendish man was silent. Sometimes, he also felt that Blackstone was too cautious. He was simply the polar opposite of the crazy Nine Nether. If the two of them could be combined, it would be perfect. Of course, he could also understand Blackstone's mood. Unsealing those sealed lords was the most important matter for Blackstone and the others. Blackstone did not want to complicate matters, so he was not willing to personally take action. Moreover, who could have predicted that Yi Chun would progress so quickly, breaking the norm and catching them unprepared? It's useless to talk about this now. The fierce-looking man shook his head. Indeed, the young man flicked his fingers and said, "This person's wings are growing stronger and stronger. If I can't kill him now, it will be very difficult to kill him in the future. I don't mind continuing to chase after him and wasting manpower and resources." The fierce-looking burly man looked at Nine Nether strangely. He didn't expect Nine Nether to be more mature than he had imagined. Perhaps the setbacks of these years had changed him a lot. In that case, he had to thank Xianhou and the Dragon King. Otherwise, with Nine Nether's craziness, he might have ruined the plan. Of course, this was Blackstone's evaluation of Nine Nether. I will talk to Blackstone. I believe he will not be willing to continue to waste energy chasing after Yi Chun. Not chasing after Yi Chun didn't mean that they had given up on killing Yi Chun. It was just that they didn't want to waste too much effort for Yi Chun's matter. If there was an opportunity in front of them, they would still give it a try. Just like Xianhou, if there was an opportunity, they wouldn't mind killing Xianhou. Unfortunately, there wasn't an opportunity. I believe that Blackstone has the same idea as me. Moreover, one Yi Chun may not be able to ruin our plan. Once those lords come out of the seal, not to mention one Yi Chun, even if there were 10 Yi Chuns, it wouldn't matter. At that time, those with battle prowess below 6 stars won't be able to control the overall situation. The young man sneered. I hope so. The fiendish man felt that Nine Nether's words were reasonable. No matter how fast Yi Chun's progress was, he was only at the initial stage. Once he reached 5 stars, his progress would slow down. In the past, Xianhou had also reached 4 stars not long after entering Life and Death Realm. However, after several decades, she had only increased by 1 star. Yi Chun was more formidable than Xianhou. Reaching the high or even peak 5-star battle prowess was already quite amazing. 6 stars was simply a pipe dream. Nine Nether, Aren't you coming with us? Putting aside the matter of Yi Chun, the fiendish man said to the young man. The young man shook his head. You guys have your plans, and I have mine. Staying together, there's no guarantee of safety. On the contrary, we'll be much safer if we're separated. You should know that you can't put all your eggs in one basket. What a pity. With you joining us, the plan can be completed even faster. The fiendish man was extremely clear about Nine Nether's ability. All right, since we've given up on chasing this kid, I'll be heading back. It's best if we don't run into each other in the future. The young man took a step forward and turned into a blue light. Let's find a safe place first. The fiendish man broke through the space barrier and dove into the depths of the sea. An hour later, two powerful auras rushed over. One was a beautiful young woman who looked like an alluring fairy. Her figure was extremely enchanting. Her chest was ample, and her waist was slender. Her legs were long and slender, occupying 2/3 of her body. Her buttocks were perky, forming an astonishing arc. In short, she was a fairy that could make any man go crazy. The other was a middle-aged man with a sharp aura like a heavenly sword, wearing a scholar's robe. Their auras far surpassed the fiendish man and the young man. If Yi Chun were here, he would certainly feel extreme danger and keep his distance. Azure Sky, Sword Emperor, you also sense the demon's aura? The alluring woman spoke first. Indeed, the middle-aged man nodded. We're late. The Fey woman brushed away the hair on her forehead. Her beautiful eyebrows furrowed together, as if she were looking at her pitifully. The demons have come out, and chaos is coming. It doesn't matter if we kill these small fries or not. Only by finding their base can we get rid of them. I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Although the stronger one is, the greater the injury. In recent years, there are still many otherworldly experts coming in. If I'm not wrong, their plan should be to unseal those super experts who have been sealed for countless years. Although these super experts have suffered great injuries, as long as they have the otherworldly treasures, they can still recover. The scariest thing is that as time passes in Elysium, their injuries are slowly recovering, and they're gradually adapting to Elysium. Once they break out and recover their cultivation, it will definitely be a disaster for our Elysium. This is a dead end. We have no other way. We can only increase our strength through the slaughter. Otherwise, we can only die together. The middle-aged man's eyes were cold, without a trace of emotion. Right now, we can only take one step at a time. I'll take my leave first. As she spoke, the alluring woman disappeared into the void. Her figure flickered, and she appeared tens of thousands of miles away. The chaotic era has come. Who knows how many kings will fall? The middle-aged man looked up at the sky, and in the next instant, his figure disappeared into the void. You and Nine Nether joined hands, but you still couldn't kill him? In the underwater palace, the black-skinned expert looked at the horn-blood figure beside him and said in a low voice. The horn-blood figure was a will projection projected by the bloodstone. He slowly said, "This kid is proficient in space profound. Whether it is his battle strength or escaping ability, he's top-notch. I'm afraid that no one under 5 stars can stop him. Ordinary 5-star kings don't have much hope, unless it's an extremely fast 5-star king. Battle prowess and speed were related, but not by much. A 5-star king with powerful battle prowess might not necessarily be faster than a 4-star king with powerful speed. Battle prowess was the embodiment of killing ability. Blackstone, this kid has already matured. We shouldn't waste too much energy." The horn-blood figure suggested. After a moment of silence, the black-skinned expert nodded. "I was too cautious. Since that's the case, let's give up on chasing him. Next, we should focus on unsealing the lords." The black-skinned expert was somewhat helpless. Previously, he had given up on chasing Shinho, and now, he was giving up on chasing Yi Chun. History was so similar. He couldn't help but admit that in Elysium, they still couldn't cover the sky with one hand. Using Space Profound, Yi Chun's speed was inconceivably fast. He shuttled through the void like a clump of formless spatial power. After a long while, Yi Chun stopped. After entering life and death realm, I can finally display a part of Space Profound. This movement art containing Space Profound is something I couldn't do before. Space Profound was one of the strongest profounds. It required great control, which was closely related to one's mental state. My battle strength should be at high stage 4-star. The Demon King demons I'm fighting is also at high stage 4-star. His foundation is a bit stronger than mine, but I can contend against him with orbit kill. It's hard to tell who will be the winner. But, adding that seemingly unfathomable youngster, I'm not his opponent. Yi-chan could see that although the youngster's aura was similar to the fiendish man's, his eyes were extremely frightening, as if he could see through one's heart. The same battle strength might not necessarily be equal. In comparison, Yi-chan felt that the youngster was a bit stronger than the fiendish man. This kind of strength came from the strength of his mental state. Unfortunately, orbit kill will take a long time to complete. Seems like I'll have to research other moves as soon as possible. It would be best if I could research the simpler ones that can increase my battle strength. Autumn Water Sword Arts. I can't. My Metal and Water Profound have both reached greater completion. To research a sword move that can contain 2 great profounds at greater completion will be more difficult than orbit kill. In a one-on-one battle, 70% completed Space Profound was naturally far superior to Metal Profound and Water Profound. 70% completed Space Profound was almost equivalent to 121% completed Metal Profound or Water Profound. However, when Metal Profound and Water Profound fused into one sword strike, the difficulty would skyrocket by more than 10 times, and its power would greatly surpass the orbital slash. Although Yi-chen's comprehension was 10 times higher than others, he couldn't create a powerful sword move just because he wanted to. It was too unrealistic. Since Autumn Water Sword Arts were not an option, he could only focus on vibrational sword arts. The first style of vibrational sword arts was Sky Cutting Sword. If he could create the second style, its might would definitely surpass the incomplete orbit kill. It would be a great help to the current Yi-chan. Chapter 911. After entering the life and death realm, one had to pay attention to too many details. Although his soul power and Jin Yuan seemed to have increased, and his power was far beyond what it had been in the past, it was still not that easy to use. It was just like a normal person with 1,000 gene of strength suddenly increased to 10,000 gene or 100,000 gene. He would not be able to control his strength in a short period of time. If he held a cup, he might break the cup. If he sat on a bench, he might break the bench. Strength was important, but technique was equally important. And the most basic requirement for technique was to be familiar with one's own strength. Therefore, when he was studying the Space Profound sword move, Orbit Kill, he had already felt that there were still some problems with his soul power and Jin Yuan control. He was not able to move the sword with his will like before. However, the vibrational sword spell's technique requirements were even higher than the Space Profound sword moves. This was because this sword art required Jin Yuan vibrations to make the sword vibrate. If one wasn't familiar with their own strength, it would be impossible for them to study the second style of the vibrational sword spell. If other sword moves were dominated by profound, then the vibrational sword spell would be dominated by vibrating power, with profound as support. Vibrational sword arts contains metal profound. With the metal profound combined with vibrational power, the second styles might will be extremely frightening. Tearing apart objects of the same level will be as easy as flipping one's hand. Yi-chan was very confident in the second style of vibrational sword arts. He was different from Lan Samei. Although Lan Samei's demonic blade arts were very high, apart from demonic blade arts, his other advantages were much weaker. He had also heard of the demonic blade king of demonic blade sect. Relying on his superb demonic blade arts, he was invincible against kings of the same level. However, the potential of Yi-chen's vibrational sword arts was not inferior to that of demonic blade arts. Most importantly, Yi-chan had the sixth-step destruction sword intent. Combined with it, the might of his vibrational sword arts would be extremely frightening. Familiarizing myself with soul power and Jin Yuan is nothing better than using defensive sword art. Next, I'll keep using it. Defensive sword art had a high requirement on soul power and Jin Yuan. While using defensive sword art, one could also familiarize themselves with soul power and Jin Yuan killing two birds with one stone. Clang! The evil vanquishing sword unsheathed itself and floated beneath Yi Chen's feet. Stepping on the evil vanquishing sword, Yi Chen formed a sword spell, activating his soul power and Zhen Yuan at the same time. Xiao, the evil vanquishing sword, carried Yi Chen, turning into a cold sword light, shooting out, shuttling through the air. Sword Dragon Art. The moment Yi Chen entered the life and death realm, he had already surpassed the realm of 42 swords. The evil shattering sword flickered and split into 42 sword images. The sword images quickly arranged themselves, turning into a sword dragon with an imposing aura as it shot out. Wherever it went, the spatial powers scattered. My soul power and Zhen Yuan have increased tremendously, and the power of my defensive sword spell has increased by more than 10 times. When he had exchanged the defensive sword technique with Sidu Hao, Yi Chen knew that the defensive sword technique had great potential, especially for him, who had a mutated soul. With the defensive sword technique, even if his comprehension of power Upanishads wasn't the same as the others, it would still bring him endless glory, and he could compete with the heroes of the world. Big Dipper 7-star Sword Art. 33 swords could be used to execute the Sword Snake Art. 42 swords could be used to execute the Sword Dragon Art, and 49 swords could be used to execute an even more powerful sword art, Big Dipper 7-star Sword Art. Starlight flickered around the evil vanquishing sword, and 7 different sword images appeared. These 7 sword images were arranged in the shape of the Big Dipper 7-star, brimming with killing intent. Go! Yi Chen shouted in a low voice. Chi 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 chi. Like a storm of pear blossoms, like rain hitting the banana leaves, the 7 sword shadows turned into 49, and the 49 sword shadows turned into nothingness, hiding in the void. In an instant, only starlight could be seen flickering, and the sword shadows could not be seen. It was like a sky full of stars shrouding the front, and there was no way to dodge or hide. This defensive sword art is indeed powerful. It was Yi Chen's first time using the Big Dipper 7-star sword art. There were some flaws in it, but its might could already be seen. It cannot be looked down upon. Speaking of which, trading spiritual sword for Situ Hao's defensive sword art back then was my profit. He didn't expect my soul to be different from ordinary people. All right, now that I'm a life and death king, I should compensate him a little. Actually, even if Yi Chen didn't compensate Sidu Hao, the latter wouldn't say anything. The exchange of the defensive sword art was completely fair. However, Yi Chen always followed his heart and would never go against it. For him, cultivating the martial Dao and sword Dao was also cultivating the heart. If one was open and above board, one would have great accomplishments. If one was insidious, one would also have great accomplishments. As long as one didn't go against his heart, everything would be fine. Days passed by, and the Big Dipper 7-star sword art became more and more skillful in Yi Chen's hands, and its killing power became increasingly fierce. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's soul power and Zhen Yuan were also becoming more and more compatible with Yi Chen. There was not the slightest barrier between them, and he was not far from being able to wield the sword with just a thought. On this day, Yi Chen appeared above the ocean. This place is not far from Monkey Island. How about paying a visit? According to Iron Monkey King's map, Yi Chen sensed that he was only a bit more than 10 million li away from Monkey Island, which could be reached in a cup of tea's time. Monkey Island, Old Chong, this is the last bottle of wine. If you finish it, you'll only get another one next year. You'd better save it. Beside the hot spring at the center of the island, Iron Monkey King and Nika Spear King sat across from each other on a stone table. Iron Monkey King painfully took out a bottle of wine. The bottle was yellow in color and looked very unremarkable. Nika Spear King unceremoniously took the bottle, opened the cork, and drank half of it in one gulp. Delicious, this one sip can increase my cultivation base by half a year. It's a pity that it's too little. Monkey, you say the same thing every year. Can't you try something new? I know you must be hiding a lot of monkey wine. Iron Monkey King glared at him. You still have the nerve to say that? This year, you've drunk 4 bottles of my wine, and I've only drunk 3.5. Do you think it's easy for me? A man and a beast often quarreled. Every time they didn't quarrel, they would feel that something was missing. Of course, this didn't mean that the two didn't have a good relationship. On the contrary, their relationship was so good that they would go through life and death together. Although Enika Spear King would come every once in a while to freeload for wine, he also spent a lot of effort and money to collect the ingredients for brewing the wine for Iron Monkey King. Iron Monkey King wasn't stingy either. Every time Enika Spear King came, he would give him a bottle of wine. Laughing, Enika Spear King said, "Stop glaring at me. I know you're hiding the wine to wait for Yi Chen's visit. We still owe him a life. I still don't know when he will come." Iron Monkey King was the most straightforward. He was afraid that he wouldn't be around when Yi Chen came. Thus, he simply shut himself in and stayed on the island. He even asked Enika Spear King to collect the ingredients to brew more top-grade monkey wine. No rush. At most, we'll pay him a visit when there's news of him. Enika Spear King took a sip of the wine, savoring the aftertaste. That's true. Iron Monkey King took out a half-full bottle of monkey wine and started drinking. Someone is coming. Suddenly, Enika Spear King's brows twitched and he put down the bottle. Who is it? Iron Monkey King stood up. His soul's sensing ability was inferior to Enika Spear King. Speak of Yi Chen, and Yi Chen will be here. Monkey, why aren't you going to welcome him? Enika Spear King smiled. He's really here? Iron Monkey King grinned. At this moment, a clear voice echoed. This he has suddenly come to visit. I hope I didn't disturb you. As soon as the voice arrived, a blue-robed youngster appeared outside the island and flew toward the center of the island. Who else could it be but Yi Chen? Where are you? Iron Monkey King and Enika Spear King went up to welcome him. You've entered life and death realm? Enika Spear King's gaze turned sluggish as he asked. Yi Chen nodded and said, I was lucky enough to cross the life and death calamity. Indeed, a peerless genius. Even before entering life and death realm, you can contend against life and death kings. Once you break through, you can go anywhere in the world. Enika Spear King sighed inwardly. Before Yi Chen entered life and death realm, although he had the strength to contend against life and death realm experts, life and death kings who didn't know him would inevitably look down on him, not treating him as an existence of the same level. But now, Yi Chen had become a life and death king, and no one dared to look down on him anymore. His status had changed drastically, and it was incomparable to before. Life and death realm was a symbol of strength as well as status. It was the highest existence in Elysium, and its significance was enormous. Come this way. Beside the hot spring, Iron Monkey King added a stone stool and waved his hand on the stone table. Amidst a flicker of light, 3 pots of brightly colored fruits appeared. One was a banana-shaped green fruit, one was a long-in-size yellow fruit, and the last one was a jewel-like orange fruit. As soon as these fruits came into contact with the air, the fragrance of the 3 completely different kinds assailed one's nostrils. Clearly, they were not ordinary fruits. This was not the end. Iron Monkey King took out 3 more bottles of monkey wine, 1 for each of them. Yi Chen, this is supreme grade monkey wine. Have a taste first. Iron Monkey King looked at Yi Chen hopefully. Yi Chen couldn't help but laugh. Uncorking the bottle, he lightly took a sip. Good wine. Yi Chen's eyes brightened. This monkey wine was extremely viscous. Holding in his mouth, the wine energy rose, clearing his mind. Swallowing it into his stomach, the wine energy instantly spread throughout his body. Not a single part of his body felt uncomfortable. Most importantly, this wine energy contained extremely rich heaven and earth energy. Circulating Zhen Yuan, the energy was instantly refined into Zhen Yuan. A single mouthful had increased his cultivation base by dozens of days, and this mouthful was merely 1/20th of the entire bottle. If he drank the entire bottle, his cultivation base for a year wouldn't be able to escape. You two are truly enjoying yourselves. This is my first time seeing a wine that can increase one's cultivation base. Yi Chen couldn't help but take another big gulp. Only then did he put down the bottle and say, Iron Monkey King's brows rose in delight as he said, I won't hide it from you. Brewing supreme grade monkey wine is not something that every demonic king of Monkey Clan can do. Last time, a life and death king came to buy my wine brewing method, but I didn't even pay him any attention. Come, have some fruits. These fruits pair well with monkey wine. They are quite beneficial to the body. This is the green mist fruit, this is the earth fragrance fruit, and this is the gem fruit. Yi Chun tasted a few of each fruit. The taste was pretty good, and they were quite nourishing to the body. After Yi Chun finished drinking and eating, the three started chatting. Chapter 9:12. Originally, I thought that after cultivating to life and death realm, I would be free and unfettered, not needing to work as hard as before. I could do whatever I wanted and easily live for 1,000 years. Unfortunately, we're living in a chaotic world. Chaotic worlds give birth to heroes, but at the same time, there will inevitably be a lot of dark turbulence. If we want to preserve our lives and not fall prematurely, we can only continuously strengthen ourselves. Anika Spear King took a sip of monkey wine and smiled bitterly. Yi Chun asked curiously, "Brother Chong, you've also heard of this?" As far as he knew, the number of people who knew about the otherworldly experts should be few and far between. How could we not know? There are many circles among life and death kings, and different circles have more or less the same people. Some secret information, as long as it's said, will spread to every circle. Of course, what we know is only the external information. As for the deeper secrets, we don't know much about them. Anika Spear King explained. So that's how it is. As Brother Chong said, this era is not stable. Otherworldly experts are eyeing us like tigers preying on their prey. Otherworldly demons are a great threat to our Elysium. You two might not know, but when I was undergoing my tribulation, some demons sent puppets to kill me. Later on, 2 demon kings of demons personally came. Fortunately, I managed to escape. Yi Chun didn't conceal anything and told Anika Spear King and Iron Monkey King about some of his experiences. You were chased by demons? Anika Spear King and Iron Monkey King were shocked. Demonic race was a race from another world that was above the human race. Under the condition that their cultivation bases were equal, the demonic race would have the upper hand. But then again, the fact that Yi Chun could escape from the hands of 2 demon kings was enough to shock the world. It should be known that the demonic race was not stupid. This kind of assassination plan had to have been carefully prepared. If it were any other peerless genius, they would have fallen long ago. Brother Yi, you'll be in danger in the future. Back then, Shinho was also chased. Although she's still alive and well, as long as there's a chance, the demons won't give up on killing her. The one speaking was Iron Monkey King. Yi Chun smiled. Don't worry. Although Yi Chun is still far from being unparalleled, it won't be that easy for the demons to kill me. Since coming to this world, Yi Chun had experienced countless dangers. He had long cultivated the ability to remain calm, even if the sky collapsed. He wouldn't be frightened by the demons. Anika Spear King admired Yi Chun's heroic spirit, but he still said worriedly, "The demons have come. I'm afraid that the curtains have already been opened. I'm afraid that we're just small and can only go with the flow of it." The atmosphere couldn't help but become a bit heavy. After a long while, Iron Monkey King suddenly said to Yi Chun, "Brother Yi, you've already become a life and death king, but you still don't have your own title. According to the rules of Elysium, you have to go to the Bestowal King Palace within a year and obtain your own title. Otherwise, the palace spirit will directly send you there." If Monkey didn't mention it, I would have forgotten to remind you. Anika Spear King also said, "Bestowal King Palace?" Battle King's memories didn't contain any information regarding Bestowal King Palace. Iron Monkey King explained, "Bestowal King Palace has existed since ancient times. I only know that the kings of Elysium obtain their titles from Bestowal King Palace. Every king's title is permanently engraved on the Bestowal King pillar at the center of Bestowal King Palace. As for the palace spirit, it is the spirituality of Bestowal King Palace. It is not weak in intelligence and controls the rules of Bestowal King Palace. In the end, the title is also decided by it. Then, do I choose the title myself, or does the palace spirit choose it?" Yi Chun asked. It's decided by the palace spirit. Of course, you can also reject it and have it changed to another one as long as it meets the requirements. Oh, Yichen nodded. All right, Anika's Spear King added. Before the title, the palace spirit will arrange an illusory opponent for you according to your battle strength. Then, it will choose the most suitable title for you based on your battle style. Under normal circumstances, the majority of life and death kings will be satisfied with the title the palace spirit chooses. Is that so? Since it's within a year, I'm not in a hurry. Yichen didn't plan to obtain his own title immediately. Anika's Spear King said, Indeed, you don't have to rush. In my opinion, Brother Yi has a chance of obtaining the Sword King title and shattering the ancient Sword King's legend. Sword King title. Iron Monkey King's eyes open wide. Among the many special titles, the Sword King title was the most difficult to obtain. Blade King, Spear King, Axe King, they were all a bit lower. The main reason was that the Sword King title was too special. The other Blade Kings, Spear Kings, and Axe Kings all eventually became emperors, becoming Blade Emperors, Spear Emperors, and Axe Emperors. Only the Sword King didn't become an emperor. Moreover, in the next several 100,000 years, no one was able to obtain the Sword King title, let alone Sword Emperor or Sword Emperor. If Yichen wanted to obtain the Sword King title, he could only surpass the ancient Sword King at the same time. Anything is possible. The reason why the ancient Sword King couldn't be surpassed was mainly because he was indeed a stunning genius. When he died, he was only 50 years old. If he had lived a few more years, he might have become the first monarch in history. However, the ancients were meant to be surpassed. Nobody could surpass him in the past, but that doesn't mean nobody can now. In fact, in the years after the ancient Sword King, there were people who surpassed the Sword King in Sword Dao. However, none of them reached the Sword King level at the age of 50. It was all due to the accumulation of time. Among the Sword Kings at the same time, the ancient Sword King was truly the first. However, Anika's Spear King still had a premonition that a miracle might happen to Yichen. Thank you for the compliment. I will try my best. Yichen admired the ancient Sword King. He also believed that if the Sword King had lived a few more years, he would have achieved several times more. Even if he couldn't become the first monarch in history, he would at least be in the top 3. Come, let's drink. We will congratulate Brother Yi in advance for obtaining the Sword King title. Iron Monkey King had always been carefree. After hearing Anika's Spear King's words, he also took it to heart. Time passed quickly. 3 days later, Yichen left Monkey Island. Before leaving, Iron Monkey King gave Yichen 3 small jars of monkey wine. 1 jar was equivalent to 3 bottles. Originally, he wanted to give 5 jars, but Yichen knew that Iron Monkey King had spent a lot of effort and resources to brew this monkey wine. According to Anika's Spear King, 1 jar of monkey wine would take a year to brew. Of course, if the time was tight, 3 jars could also be brewed in a year. However, generally, there weren't so many materials. The materials needed to be collected slowly. Time was one thing, but the brewing materials were all top grade and priceless. How could Yichen accept 5 jars from the other party? Although supreme grade monkey wine can increase cultivation base, drinking it all at once is too wasteful. It's not bad to use it to entertain friends. Life and Death Kings had a noble status. Sometimes, other Life and Death Kings would come knocking on their doors. After a long time, they would form a circle, and it would be too shameful if they didn't have anything good to entertain their guests. Yichen pondered for a moment. He wanted to find some spirit tree, nurturing fluid to mature the fire pear tree. If the fire pear tree became a supreme grade spirit tree, its fire pears would also be good for entertaining guests. Let's return to Eternal Sky Sect first. After researching the second style of vibrational sword arts, I'll officially return to true Spirit Continent. High-level 4-star battle strength was not enough to intimidate the crowd. If Yichen were to return, he would have to return with absolute strength. And right now, he was still lacking something. Soon, Yichen returned to Eternal Sky Sect. On the second day, everyone in Eternal Sky Sect knew that Yichen had entered Life and Death Realm. My Eternal Sky Sect finally has a Life and Death King. From now on, Who would dare to offend my Eternal Sky sect? Ha! The leader of Eternal Sky sect, Li Zhongfeng, was ecstatic. Having a life and death king was extremely important. Without a life and death king, Eternal Sky sect would not have enough deterrence. Those sects who dared to offend them would also have to consider the consequences of offending a life and death king. It was especially so for those life and death kings who specialized in speed. If they were offended, there would be trouble in the future. Even if they didn't dare to attack your sect, they could easily kill your disciples or disciples. Life and death kings would either not make enemies, or once they did, it would be a death grudge. Therefore, under normal circumstances, life and death kings would rarely intentionally offend others. The shock of Eternal Sky sect didn't distract Yi Chun, who was wholeheartedly researching the second style of vibrational sword arts. Swoosh! A cloth-tearing sound was heard as Yi Chun slashed out with his sword. The sword light was extremely clear, and if one were to magnify it 100 times, they would find that the sword light was actually vibrating at an extremely high frequency. But because the vibrating speed was too fast, people couldn't feel the vibrations at all. It looked extremely clear, no different from an ordinary sword attack. Bang! The opposite mountain peak was suddenly cut in the middle, causing dust to fill the sky. The thin mountain peak in the middle was directly turned into powder by the sword light. The cross-section of the mountain peak was as smooth as marble. Not good. The metal profound and the vibrating power are not harmonized. One knew one's own strength well. This sword seemed to be majestic, but in fact, there were many flaws in the details. In other words, the technique was not enough. It would be fine against ordinary opponents, but against kings like Demonic Blade King who were proficient in vibrating power, the technique would be at a disadvantage. Of course, Yi Chun could obtain victory with absolute strength. However, Yi Chun preferred to surpass the opponent in terms of technique as well. Someone's coming. On this day, a man and a woman arrived at Eternal Sky sect. The man was a skinny middle-aged man with a trace of faint blade chi on his body. The blade chi was extremely exquisite, like a spring breeze caressing one's face. The woman following behind him had an extremely young appearance. Her appearance was charming and elegant, but she was Demonic Blade sect's disciple, Lan Sanmei. The two didn't directly arrive at Yi Chen's place. Instead, they politely landed on Eternal Sky sect's main peak plaza. I truly didn't expect him to become a life and death king so quickly. The middle-aged man sighed with emotion. Originally, he was prepared to help Yi Chen when he was in danger. Sending charcoal in snowy weather was always better than adding flowers to a brocade. However, his plan couldn't keep up with the changes, causing him to miss the opportunity to befriend the latter. Fortunately, his disciple, Lan Sanmei, had a good relationship with Yi Chen. After learning that Yi Chen had entered life and death realm, he personally paid a visit with Lan Sanmei. Chapter 9:13. Mayor, your luck is very good. Such a rare genius was actually encountered by you, and you even became friends with him. Although we cultivators have our pride and dislike bowing and scraping, human resources are indispensable. Back then, mysterious queen smoothly entered life and death realm and became an influential figure of true spirit continent because of Dragon King's shadow. This Yi Chen has the shadow of both Dragon King and mysterious queen behind him. Compared to them, I'm still far behind, and my words don't carry much weight. On the other hand, this Yi Chen will certainly become an influential figure of true spirit continent in the future. The middle-aged man was precisely Demonic Blade sect's leader, Demonic Blade King. His battle strength had reached 3-star, and he was quite famous in Blood Sky continent. However, in Elysium, 3-star battle strength didn't have much of a say. 4-star battle strength was barely enough, and only 5-star battle strength could make a difference. Everyone had to give face to him. With the arrival of the Age of Turmoil, having a powerful king as a backer was a must. Without a backer and ordinary strength, one could easily fall. Master, Mayor, and Yi Chen have known each other for a period of time. I can see that he is a person who values friendship. If we treat him with sincerity, he will treat us with sincerity as well. If we only want to get close to him, he won't want to have a deep relationship with us. Lan Sanmei reminded Demonic Blade King. You're right. It's only reasonable for us to be friends with him, not to befriend him with ulterior motives. How could Demonic Blade King not understand this logic? Demonic Blade King and Miss Lan's arrival brings light to Eternal Sky Sect. I apologize for not going out to meet you. In the palace, Li Zhongfeng personally came out to greet them with a smile. Demonic Blade King faintly nodded. Originally, with his status, he wouldn't have anything to do with a late sea of Soul Realm martial artist like Li Zhongfeng. However, with Yi Chun behind him, his status immediately changed. Sect Leader Li, we've come to find Yi Chun, Lan Sanmei said politely. Li Zhongfeng said, Elder Yi is training in the core area of the mountain range. I've already sent someone to inform him. Why don't you two go to the guest palace and have some tea? All right. The Demonic Blade King nodded. As the two of them strode forward, a sword light approached from afar and landed on the square. It was Yi Chun. Miss Lan. Yi Chun smiled at Lan Sanmei. Then his gaze fell on the Demonic Blade King. And this is? Lan Sanmei introduced. Yi Chun, this is my master, the Demonic Saber King. He is also the sect leader of the Demonic Saber sect. As she spoke, she sized up Yi Chun. Compared to before, Yi Chun's body was emitting a frightening pressure. This pressure couldn't be concealed at all. Even if Yi Chun had restrained his king's aura, he couldn't restrain this pressure. After entering life and death realm, One Soul and Zhun Yuan would both sublimate. Even if he didn't do it intentionally, it would still make people under life and death realm feel oppressed. Once a life and death king intentionally released his pressure, people under life and death realm would lose all desire to attack. Of course, some peak geniuses were exceptions. Her master, Demonic Blade King, had a pressure, but it didn't seem as powerful as Yi Chun's. So it's Demonic Blade King. Welcome. Yi Chun cupped his fists. Demonic Blade King smiled. I hope you don't take offense to my sudden visit. I heard that you've entered life and death realm, and now that I've seen you, the rumors are indeed true. This Lan congratulates you first. Demonic Blade King also cupped his fists. This way, please. Yi Chun's right hand gestured toward his mountain peak and said to Li Zhongfeng, Sect Leader, I'll take care of them. All right. Li Zhongfeng knew that it had nothing to do with him. However, a king personally paying a visit to Eternal Sky Sect would give them a lot of face. The three flew to Yi Chun's Elder's Peak and landed beside a pavilion. The pavilion was situated at the highest point of the mountain peak, and there were stone tables and chairs inside. Sitting inside, one could see the sea of clouds flowing beneath one's feet. The moist wind blew gently, giving one a feeling of not knowing the passage of time outside the mountain. As for the monkey wine, since the two sides weren't familiar with each other, Yi Chun naturally wouldn't take it out to receive Demonic Blade King. Fortunately, he had prepared a few precious tea sets and many top-grade teas. After boiling the water, Yi Chun poured the tea for Demonic Blade King and Lan Sanmei. The tea's fragrance filled the air. After pouring the tea, Yi Chun took out a fire pear from his plant ring and placed it on the stone table. Good fruit. Demonic Blade King ate a pear and couldn't help but praise. I don't have anything to receive you. I've made a fool of myself in front of Demonic Blade King. Yi Chun held the teacup as the mountain breeze fluttered his blue robes and ink-black hair. Brother Yi hasn't had his title yet, right? Demonic Blade King suddenly asked. Putting down the teacup, Yi Chun said, No rush. I'll go to the title palace in a few days. Oh, that's good too. It's not a good thing to go early. Demonic Blade King nodded and looked at Lan Sanmei with a smile. I heard from her that Brother Yi has also developed a sword art that contains vibration power, which is similar to the demonic blade spell. I believe that I have made some progress in the research of vibration power. How about we spar? Yi Chun looked at Demonic Blade King in astonishment. The latter's words clearly indicated that he wanted to use this opportunity to teach him some techniques related to vibration power. Although Yi Chun's comprehension was extremely high, his accumulation was not even 1/10 of Demonic Blade King's. With the latter's guidance, he could save a lot of time and avoid many detours. Of course, that would be for the best. Regardless of the other's goal, Yichen would not miss this opportunity. If the other wanted to befriend him, then he had succeeded. In fact, Demonic Blade King's proposal to spar with Yichen was not only to teach him some vibration power techniques, but also to see what extent Yichen's battle strength had reached after entering life and death realm. This was something that many people in the know would want to know, and he would be the first to know. The two didn't choose any other place to spar. This time, the two had decided not to use Zhen Yuan or Will, and would only use blade arts and sword arts. The range wouldn't be too large. Above the sea of clouds, the two stood 100 meters apart. Beside the sea of clouds, Lan Sanmei sat alone in a pavilion, drinking tea while watching the battle. "Brother Yi, be careful." Demonic Blade King pulled out his black long blade, its edge flickering with a cold light. "You be careful too." Yichen's right hand grasped the evil vanquishing sword's hilt and slowly pulled it out. Ding! Demonic Blade King's speed was extremely fast. His figure flickered, and he appeared before Yichen, slashing out with a black blade light. Demonic Blade King's speed was fast, but Yichen's reaction was not slow. The evil vanquishing sword blocked Demonic Blade King's long blade, and the vibration power surged forward. Buzz! A large amount of ripples spread out, turning the sea of clouds into nothingness. Good! Demonic Blade King laughed heartily, slashing again and again at Yichen. Each slash was faster than the previous, as if there was no end to it. The powerful vibration power was completely restrained on the blade, and only erupted when it came into contact with Yichen's evil vanquishing sword. If it were an ordinary king, their weapon would have been sent flying, and their arms would have been injured, spurting blood. However, Yichen was also proficient in vibration power. Demonic Blade King was exchanging pointers with ordinary blade arts, so it was naturally easy for him to deal with it. This Yichen's achievements in vibration power are truly terrifying. In such a short amount of time, he was able to use vibration power to such a degree. He is indeed a rare genius that only appears once in 10,000 years. The more they exchanged pointers, the more shocked Demonic Blade King became. With ordinary blade arts, he was unable to do anything to Yichen. Although Yichen's achievements in vibration power were slightly weaker than his, Yichen's sword angle was much better than his. Every time his long blade came into contact with Yichen's sword, 10% of his power would be wasted. Ding! 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 Dazzling sparks danced in the sea of clouds. These sparks seemed to have a mind of their own. Sometimes they would spin in the air, sometimes they would fly up and down, and sometimes they would shoot out in a straight line. Every time they clashed, the sparks would have different trajectories that were hard to grasp. Take my demonic slash. Demonic Blade King gripped his blade with both hands, and with a low roar, he slashed out. Compared to Lan Sanmei, Demonic Slash was more than 10 times stronger in Demonic Blade King's hands. The blade light was not blurry at all, and it stuck close to the edge of the blade, sparkling and translucent. I also have a sky-cutting sword. Yichen neither retreated nor dodged, instead using the first style of vibrational sword art, sky-cutting sword. Ong, bong, pong. Numerous sounds erupted at the same time. The two of them did not move. Their swords and sabers clashed against each other. However, the surrounding sea of clouds suddenly trembled. Then, it was cut by the vibrating power. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Several huge mountains nearby were cut by the invisible power. Mountain rocks tumbled down. It should be known that the two did not use Zhen Yuan or Will, and only used blade arts and sword arts to exchange pointers. Even so, the ripples that spread out were still inconceivably huge. Boom! The vibrating power completely exploded, and a twisting mass of air exploded, sending the two flying. Amazing! The next blade is called Rampage Demonic Blade, which I spent 10 years to create. Brother Yi, watch carefully. Demonic Blade Arts and Demonic Slash were blade arts passed down in Demonic Blade Sect. Meanwhile, Lan Sanmei's Destruction Slash and Demonic Blade King's Rampage Demonic Blade were both killing moves created based on Demonic Blade Arts and Demonic Slash. Lan Sanmei's destruction slash had not been completed yet, but there were already signs of it. Demonic Blade King's rampage, Demonic Blade had already reached perfection. Raising his black blade horizontally, Demonic Blade King gave a low roar, and his whole body shot out in a straight line. This blade strike was like a thunderous roar, vividly displaying the explosive power. What a powerful blade move. Yi Chen's pupils shrank. Demonic Blade King's blade had shaken his mind, and he subconsciously thought that he would not be able to block it. The second style of vibrational sword art had not been completed yet, but Yi Chen did not care. Chi! The sound of cloth tearing resounded as Yi Chen's hair fluttered in the wind, and his sword light shone brightly. Clang! The sound of metal exploding and twisting resounded as the two's blades and swords clashed fiercely. The sparks were as bright as the sun and moon, dancing around the two. With a muffled groan, Yi Chen's whole body shot out. The clothes on his right arm had been torn to shreds, scattering in all directions like butterflies, accompanied by a trace of blood. Chapter 9:14. Too powerful. The vibrational energy condensed into one and exploded at the moment of contact. Yi Chen felt that his right arm was already numb, and his bones were sore. Being able to hold onto the evil, shattering sword without losing control was already the best he could do. Stabilizing his body with all his might, Yi Chen operated the undying body and healed the hidden injuries on his right arm. Then he said in admiration, "What a good rampaging demonic blade." Yi Chen has seen it for himself. Dare I ask, Demonic Blade King, how much strength did you use in this blade? How could he not feel that Demonic Blade King had not used his full strength? If he had, it wouldn't have been as simple as a light injury on his right arm. His bones would have been shattered, and his muscles would have disintegrated. Of course, it was impossible for Yi Chen to not know his limits. This was just a spar, and neither side used Zhen Yuan or will. About 30%. Demonic Blade King said honestly. Although he knew that Demonic Blade King had not used his full strength, hearing that he had only used 30% still made Yi Chen a bit dazed. This Demonic Blade King was not to be underestimated. No wonder he was a peak existence amongst high-step kings. Just this rampaging demonic blade alone was something that few high-step kings could block. "Brother Yi, do you want to try again?" Demonic Blade King asked. Of course. Yi Chen's heart itched. After the spar with Demonic Blade King, he had gained a new understanding of vibrational energy, especially the last rampaging demonic blade, which made him feel enlightened. 40% of this attack. Demonic Blade King reminded before shooting out again. His blade was like thunder, and the blade light was extremely restrained, as if it could even devour sunlight. Yi Chen's expression was solemn as he gripped the evil vanquishing sword with both hands and slashed out vertically. Clang! Sparks exploded, and a berserk chi wave swept out in all directions. In the next instant, a small mountain nearby collapsed, sending rocks flying everywhere. Just like last time, Yi Chen's right arm was sore and powerless. Blood spurted out as he shot out. Improvement. Demonic Blade King's expression froze. At 30%, Yi Chen was like this. At 40%, Yi Chen was still like this. If this wasn't improvement, what was? Amazing. The Demonic Blade King was shocked by Yi Chen's comprehension and learning ability. Again, Yi Chen had already healed the internal injuries on his right arm. All right, I'll use half of my strength this time. Taking a deep breath, the Demonic Saber King was extremely precise. He executed the same saber technique as before without the slightest error. However, this time, the explosive power of the saber technique was a level higher. It was like a sudden clap of thunder or a flash flood. Kacha! This was the sound of bones breaking. Yi Chen's right arm was bleeding profusely. I can't keep up with my progress. Yi Chen's chest tightened, and there was a taste of blood in his throat. The further one went, the harder it was to learn the vibrational power. In the beginning, Yi Chen was able to keep up with the Demonic Blade King's rhythm, but later on, he couldn't keep up. In the end, he was still a human, not a god. The rate of improvement couldn't be that great forever. It would eventually slow down. Will the next strike still use half of my strength? The demonic blade king asked. It's fine. 60%. The demonic blade king gradually increased the power of his saber, giving him a sense of urgency. He didn't want this sense of urgency to disappear. Humans were strange creatures. The more pressure they were, the greater their potential would be. Of course, there had to be a limit, or else they would collapse. Then, be careful. The demonic blade king understood Yi Chen's thoughts and attacked once again. This time, the muscles of Yi Chen's right arm disintegrated, and his bones broke inch by inch. Using his weakness to clash with the demonic blade king's strength, the result was naturally miserable. It was like a high-grade king who didn't use his own killing move, but instead used the unfamiliar vibrational power to clash with the demonic blade king. The result wouldn't be any better. He probably wouldn't even be able to receive 120% of the demonic blade king's power. Stop for a while. Yi Chen suddenly stopped. It wasn't that he couldn't bear it, but he had comprehended too much at once, and he didn't have time to digest it. The more time he wasted, the more his inspiration would disappear. Therefore, after saying this, he immediately closed his eyes. I've comprehended something. The demonic blade king understood. He stood in the air and waited quietly. So that's how it is. Yi Chen wasn't the only one who had comprehended something. Lan Sanmei also had some comprehension. Her demonic blade arts were the same as the demonic blade king's. Although she didn't personally experience the demonic blade king's demonic blade, she still benefited a lot from watching from the side. After all, she was different from Yi Chen. Yi Chen had his own path, and he also cultivated sword arts. Lan Sanmei, on the other hand, cultivated the demonic blade arts that had been passed down since the founding of the demonic blade sect. Her heart surging, Lan Sanmei couldn't help but take out her long blade and practice. The wind and rain in the outside world had nothing to do with Yi Chen. He was immersed in comprehending the vibrational power. In his mind, the demonic blade king's image attacked him again and again. The movements became slower and clearer, as if it had been slowed down by 1,000 times. Each movement could be seen clearly. His soul power was 10 times that of an ordinary person, which made Yi Chen's simulation ability extraordinary. His analysis ability could be said to be terrifying. Oh, right, just like this. Yi Chen didn't open his eyes. He held the evil, vanquishing sword and casually waved it. Once, twice. After dozens of times, Yi Chen opened his eyes. This time, I'll use 60%. Yi Chen said to the demonic blade king. The demonic blade king nodded. Clang! The result shocked the demonic blade king. Last time, Yi Chen's arm muscles were disintegrated and his bones were broken. This time, Yi Chen only had some cracks in his muscles, but his bones weren't broken. His comprehension is too terrifying. For the first time, the demonic blade king felt a chill from a certain person's comprehension. As expected, Yi Chen finally found the right path. The demonic blade king's future was still ahead, but the path he was studying was wrong. Or to be more accurate, he had taken a detour. Therefore, no matter how hard he tried, he could only approach perfection. Now that he was sparring with the demonic blade king, he was guided to the right path, and his improvement was starting to become obvious. At 70%, Yi Chen once again experienced the pain of his right arm being torn apart. However, he quickly adapted to the 70% and began to move towards 80%. This kid is definitely a freak. He actually improved so much in one day. The demonic blade king couldn't understand why Yi Chen's improvement was so great. It was beyond his imagination, breaking common sense. In his opinion, no matter how talented a genius was, there had to be a process of gradual improvement. No one could do it in one go. If there was someone who could do it, that person would be a god. Of course, he didn't know that Yi Chen had been studying the second style of the vibrational sword art for a long time. Because he had taken a detour, he had stagnated. The demonic blade king's appearance had allowed Yi Chen to return to the right path. Adding on his previous accumulation, his improvement was naturally godly, and his comprehension of the vibrational force was suddenly enlightened. Apart from this, one couldn't ignore the fact that Yi Chen's comprehension was indeed ridiculously strong. 10 times the comprehension of an ordinary person was already a great miracle. The rampant demonic Blade King reached 80%, and its power suddenly rose to a whole new level. After 10 consecutive exchanges, Yichen still couldn't close the gap. This made him understand that the accumulation of studying the second style of the vibrational sword art had been used up. Just by relying on his comprehension, it would be difficult to digest so much information in a short period of time. Slightly embarrassed, Yichen said, "Demonic Blade King, let's call it a day. Have you been busy recently?" "Okay." The demonic Blade King heaved a sigh of relief. Yichen's mind was tired, and he was also a little tired from the shock of Yichen's comprehension. "I've been busy recently, but Mayor and I will disturb you for a few days. It won't be troublesome, right?" The demonic Blade King's thoughts were clear, and he immediately guessed what Yichen was thinking. In fact, if it were him instead of Yichen, he most likely wouldn't be willing to part with such a good sparring partner. "It's not troublesome at all. I just wanted to keep you for a few days," Yichen generously admitted. The demonic Blade King had worked hard to spar with him, so Yichen naturally had to properly entertain him. Returning to the pavilion, he took out a jar of monkey wine and 3 cups from his storage ring. "This is a supreme-grade monkey wine gifted to me by a friend. Have a taste." Yichen filled the cups for the two. The demonic Blade King sniffed it, and his eyes brightened as he gulped it down. "Good wine. I've never tasted such good wine before. No, this wine can increase cultivation base." The viscous monkey wine entered his stomach, and its energy was immediately refined into Zhen Yuan. It was extremely pure. Lan Sanmei drank a mouthful, but her face turned red and her body heated up. The energy contained in the wine was too pure, making the wine extremely potent. Even with her cultivation base that had yet to reach life and death realm, she immediately became drunk. The Zhen Yuan in her body surged, and she almost lost control and exploded. She couldn't help but glance at Yichen in reproach. Yichen smiled. "This supreme-grade monkey wine takes 1 year to brew. 1 cup can increase a life and Death King's cultivation base by 1 month. Truly good wine." Demonic Blade King couldn't help but glance at the wine jar on the stone table. In fact, increasing cultivation base was secondary. With Demonic Blade King's cultivation base, a cup of monkey wine would be useless. However, after reaching life and death realm, ordinary wine would be tasteless if it were cold water. He had also learned how to brew wine, but unfortunately, he could only brew upper-grade wine. How could it compare to supreme-grade monkey wine? "Come." Yichen filled Demonic Blade King's cup once again. On the same day, Lan Sanmei went to bed early. Yichen and Demonic Blade King emptied the jar of monkey wine and became somewhat drunk. 5 days passed in a flash. On this day, Yichen and Demonic Blade King continued exchanging pointers. "Yichen, you've put in a lot of effort this time. No one in the same realm can receive my rampage demonic blade without being affected." Demonic Blade King held the black long blade with both hands and reminded, "This sword of mine is also close to perfection. I have to thank you for these 5 days of guidance." In these 5 days, Yichen had gained a deeper understanding of the vibration power. Before, he had been walking an unorthodox path, and the reason why he was able to improve so fast was because of his high comprehension ability. Without this advantage, it would be hard for him to make any progress with the vibration power. "All right, take this." Demonic Blade King's blade slashed horizontally, causing a thunderous explosion. Sucking in a deep breath, Yichen's eyes erupted with an astonishing radiance. As the sword slashed out, the surrounding Yuan Qi seemed to have lost its core, and the space seemed to have refracted. It was as if this sword was not a sword, but a beam of light. Pung! The two remained motionless. In the next moment, Demonic Blade King's right arm trembled violently. Countless sharp qi surged out of it like a small tornado, wreaking havoc. "What is this sword called?" Demonic Blade King asked after losing his right arm. "Let's call it Heaven Wounding Sword." Chapter 9:15. Heaven Wounding Sword. Vibrational sword spells second style. It was different from the Heaven Splitting Sword. The heaven-hurting sword transmitted the vibration power into the opponent's body and carried out an internal vibration explosion. Therefore, this required the vibration power to be extremely concentrated, or else it would be consumed prematurely. The reason why the demonic Blade King was able to receive this sword strike and only lost his right arm was mainly because his vibration power was also very concentrated, so the impact he received was not great. Otherwise, it would not be as simple as his right arm exploding, but his entire body exploding. Amazing! The Rampage Demon Blade that I spent 10 years to create can't even compare to your heaven-wounding sword. How shameful! Demonic Blade King spat out a mouthful of turbid air. This is all thanks to Senior Demonic Blade King's guidance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to complete this move so quickly. Yi-Chen was telling the truth. According to his estimation, it would take him at least 3 months to complete this attack. But with someone to teach him, it would be a different story. What he did not know was that there were people who had been stuck at a certain level for countless years. But one day, after being reminded by someone, they would suddenly see a whole new world. Without a powerful comprehension, even if I guide you, it would be useless. The demonic blade, King, shook his head. He had personally experienced the heaven-inflicted sword before, so he was very clear on how frightening this sword was. When the two exchanged blows, neither Jin Yuan nor Will was used, so the lethality of the heaven-inflicted sword was not that great. But once Jin Yuan and Will were used, the heaven-inflicted sword's lethality would be increased by 100 times, and the gap would be even greater. For example, before Jin Yuan and Will were used, the Rampage Demon Blade's lethality would be 900, and the heaven-inflicted sword's lethality would be 1,000. With a difference of 100, the ratio would not increase, but the effect would be completely different. Moreover, Yi-Chen's destruction sword intent had reached the 6th step. Combined with Heaven Wounding Sword, the destructive power could only be described as terrifying. It was definitely a killing weapon. Brother Yi, I want to see you use Heaven Wounding Sword with all your strength. Would it be troublesome? Demonic Blade King suddenly suggested. All right. Yi-Chen agreed without the slightest hesitation. This isn't a good place to test the sword. Let's go somewhere else. Yi-Chen said. Of course, let's go to the 3rd layer. Demonic Blade King raised his head. The 3rd heaven was known as Zenith Heaven, which was actually a starry sky. However, this starry sky was confined within Elysium, separated from the starry sky outside by a world barrier. In the starry sky, countless stars twinkled. Some were close, some were far away. Apart from the places where the light of the stars shone, everywhere else was pitch black and silent. This kind of pitch black wasn't pitch black to the point where one couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. Instead, it was the kind of pitch black where one couldn't see how far or how deep it was, as if there was no end to it. After breaking through the 2nd layer of heaven, the extreme void sky, the 3 of them arrived in this starry sky. Although Lan Sanmei was not a life and death king, she had long since gained the strength to break through extreme void. Moreover, it was not her first time coming to this starry sky. She was very familiar with the gravity-free environment here and didn't lose her composure. On the other hand, it was Yi-Chen's first time coming to the starry sky. Breaking through extreme void sky required extremely powerful strength. When Yi-Chen was still a mid-step, half-step king, he didn't have the strength to do so. Later on, he became a high-step, half-step king and went to life and death secret realm. Thereafter, Yi-Chen's advancement speed was too fast, and he didn't even have time to comprehend life and death Dao and study martial skills. How could he have the opportunity to enter the starry sky? Is this the starry sky? Yi-Chen felt as if his mind had received a huge impact. Those countless stars, that boundless, deep, and immeasurable darkness suddenly poured into his mind. The sky was no longer the sky, and the earth was no longer the earth. There was no sky, no earth, and no gravity at all. There was only freedom and solitude. Is this your first time coming to the starry sky? Seeing Yi-Chen's expression, Lan Sanmei asked curiously. Yi-Chen nodded, not denying it. I really don't know what you're thinking. Back then, when I had the strength to break through extreme void sky, I immediately came to take a look. Lan Sanmei sized up the beautiful starry sky and said. Demonic Blade King smiled. It's not too late to take a look now. However, Brother Yi, the starry sky is different from the space below. The space in the starry sky is extremely stable. Compared to this place, the space below is as fragile as tofu. Therefore, even life and death kings can't break the space here. However, since there's no gravity in the starry sky, and there's no air resistance, the speed of flying here is extremely fast. It's so fast that it'll astonish you. Is that so? Yi Chen's body suddenly shot out. Hoochie! A cyan light streaked across the silent starry sky, instantly reaching an extremely distant region. At the beginning, Yi Chen was still somewhat unable to adapt to the gravity-free and airproof state. However, he soon adjusted. In terms of adapting to the environment, if an ordinary person could do 1/10 as well as Yi Chen, it would already be quite good. Is this his first time coming to the starry sky? Demonic Blade King and Lan Sanmei were somewhat doubtful. Apart from the initial awkwardness, Yi Chen's understanding of the starry sky even surpassed Lan Sanmei's, not inferior to Demonic Blade King's. Without circulating Zhen Yuan, Yi Chen naturally floated in the starry sky. Thinking inwardly, this speed is even faster than piercing through the void. Seems like Elysium's gravity is too powerful. That's right, Elysium is too huge. Moreover, it's different from ordinary stars, so its gravity is quite normal. As for the resistance, the faster one's speed, the greater the resistance. In the starry sky, it was not that there was no resistance, but it was very small. When one's speed reached a certain level, one could still feel the existence of resistance. Let's choose that star. Zhen Yuan wrapped around Lan Sanmei. Demonic Blade King followed closely behind Yi Chen, pointing at a broken star in the distance. That star seemed to have experienced a king-level battle, as it was full of holes. There was a huge piece of land that had even separated from the star. However, due to the star's gravity, this piece of land that was thousands of li in size couldn't be separated too far from the broken star. All right, circulating his green lotus sword arts, Yi Chen increased his speed and flew over. Thousands of li away, the three stopped. Brother Yi, let me feel the power of your heaven-wounding sword. Demonic Blade King was quite expectant. He really wanted to know how powerful the heaven-wounding sword, which contained king-level Zhen Yuan and 6-step destruction sword intent, would be. Perhaps I could destroy it in one sword. Yi Chen smiled. Impossible. Demonic Blade King couldn't believe it. This star was more than 10,000 li in diameter, and he believed that it could be destroyed. But to destroy it in one sword, he didn't dare to believe it. It should be known that destroying 10,000 li of land and destroying a star with a diameter of 10,000 li were two completely different concepts. Destroying 10,000 li of land actually didn't affect the area too deep. On the other hand, the star was round, with a diameter of 10,000 li regardless of direction. The depth was the same. Thus, the difficulty of destroying it increased by more than 10 times. Never tried, but I think it's possible. Yi Chen knew the heaven-wounding sword the best. This kind of concentrated vibration power had an extremely powerful effect. Destroying a star should be similar to destroying a human body. Of course, in order to be absolutely safe, he didn't use the evil shattering sword. Instead, he took out the supreme grade sky Scorpio sword. With the sky Scorpio sword in hand, Yi Chen took a deep breath, his eyes bursting with radiance. Go! With a low roar, Yi Chen waved his sword from a distance. Incorporeal ripples spread out at an extremely fast speed, reaching the broken star in almost a blink of an eye. The star fiercely trembled to an extremely exaggerated degree. Many hill-sized pieces of land were shaken off, flying in all directions. Rumble. Sparks exploded along the cracks on the star's surface. It's really going to explode. Demonic Blade King's Zhen Yuan curled up, pulling Lan Sanmei back. Pung! Endless light erupted. With the three as the center, the starry sky became as bright as day. Their eyes couldn't see anything, and their shadows were stretched out endlessly. In the end, even the shadows were devoured by the endless light. In the next moment, a majestic and powerful shock wave spread out, incomparably scorching. Yi Chen's protective Zhen Yuan emitted a sizzling sound as his Zhen Yuan flowed away like water. Demonic Blade King was far away, so he wasn't affected as much. However, he was still blown several thousand li away by the shockwave. Through his soul power, he could see a huge shockwave rapidly expanding like a halo. Meanwhile, the star in the center had long since turned into a ball of fire, expanding and releasing enormous heat. What a frightening, explosive power! After waving the sword, Yi Chun retreated 100,000 li away. However, he was still somewhat unable to bear it. If he had been too close, he might have been seriously injured. If he had been too close to the star, he might have been instantly turned into ashes, leaving not even his bones behind. Even the undying body couldn't save him, because his flesh and blood would have been vaporized. As the shockwave grew smaller and smaller, Demonic Blade King approached. You really destroyed it. I've underestimated the might of this sword. Demonic Blade King smiled. How's the power of a star's explosion? It's powerful, isn't it? The star doesn't seem to be a threat to us, but once it explodes, all its energy will burst out in an instant. Even life and death kings will have to retreat 3 feet. It indeed can't be underestimated. Yi Chen faintly nodded. As for being able to destroy a 10,000 li star, Yi Chen wasn't too surprised. Heaven Pain Sword was different from other moves. The vibrational energy was concentrated and transmitted to the core of the star, where it would rapidly explode, causing destruction from the inside out. If it were destroyed from the outside, it would at most make the star even more dilapidated. Perhaps after many years, the star would fall, but not now. Too powerful. Demonic Blade King could somewhat endure Yi Chen's destruction of a star, but Lan Sanmei's experience was broadened. After all, when she entered the starry sky before, she didn't dare to stray too far from extreme void sky. She had never seen someone fight in the starry sky and destroy a star. This was her first time. Her visual senses were pushed to the limit. In her mind, the magnificence and destruction of the star's explosion kept replaying. Chapter 9:16. Returning to Eternal Sky Sect, Demonic Blade King prepared to take his leave. Brother Yi, you've entered life and death realm, so I don't have anything good to give you. This is the general principles of demonic blade arts. You can refer to it, and it should help you avoid some detours. Taking out a jade strip from his storage ring, Demonic Blade King handed it over to Yi Chun. Yi Chun was a bit hesitant. Demonic blade arts were the foundation of Demonic Blade Sect, and the other party just handed it over to him. He was truly startled and unprepared. When a nest is overturned, no egg can remain unbroken. In Brother Ye's hands, demonic blade arts should display even greater effect. In that case, I might as well help you. I only hope that Brother Yi won't spread the arts. Demonic Blade King said, slowly letting out a breath. Yi Chun heavily nodded. Many thanks, Senior Demonic Blade King. If there's time in the future, Yi Chun will definitely pay you a visit and drink until we're drunk. Yi Chen's words showed that he considered the other party as a friend. Then I'll definitely welcome you. Demonic Blade King laughed heartily. Giving away demonic blade arts might be a big deal for Demonic Blade Sect, but for Demonic Blade King, it was nothing. To be able to make friends with Yi Chun, even 10 demonic blade arts were worth it. Moreover, Yi Chen's main path of development was not vibration power. With or without demonic blade arts, he could still reach the peak. Demonic blade arts would only make his progress a bit faster. A few days after Demonic Blade King and Lan Sanmei left, Yi Chun continued to study demonic blade arts. The general principles of the magic blade technique did not describe the vibration force in detail, but the structure was very clear. If one were to use an adjective to describe it, the magic blade technique was like a framework. If the framework was perfect, all one needed to do was fill it in. There was no way to take a detour. The magic blade technique could also be compared to the trunk of a large tree. The trunk was straight, and no matter how the branches developed, it would not affect the balance of the entire tree. It could grow healthily. In short, although demonic blade arts would not increase Yi Chen's comprehension of vibration power by much, it would allow Yi Chen to advance without worrying about any detours. This would naturally save him a lot of time. I've already mastered the heaven-inflicted sword, but I haven't mastered it yet. With this demonic blade art, I should be able to master it soon. It was very, very difficult for a powerful martial art to reach perfection. Mastery meant that the martial art's power had been unleashed to its greatest extent. Perfection meant that the martial art had been completely comprehended, regardless of whether it was important or trivial. This was difficult to achieve in a short period of time. No matter how good a martial art was, it still needed to be tested countless times in order to discover its flaws and inadequacies. Yi Chen had just perfected the heaven-inflicted sword and had not fought with anyone before. Naturally, it was difficult for him to discover the flaws and inadequacies of the heaven-inflicted sword. It's time to leave. On this day, Yi Chen had the thought of leaving the Blood Sky Land. Before I leave, I should create a consciousness avatar. Life and Death Kings had many abilities. Mental projection and will projection were the most frequently used and also the most practical. The creation of the mental perception body could be said to be simple, but it could also be said to be difficult. Simple because all life and death kings knew them. Difficult because the quality of consciousness avatars varied. The high ones had about 1/3 of the main body's battle power, while the low ones didn't even have 1/5 of the main body's battle power. Moreover, they were easy to collapse. For example, the consciousness avatar of the masked man had about 1/3 of the masked man's battle power. Its structure was also very stable, and it wouldn't collapse so easily. It meant that the masked man had made quite a bit of progress in creating consciousness avatars. If not for Yi Chen's soul light, it wouldn't have collapsed so easily. The first step of creating the consciousness image was to use himself as the model and use Zhen Yuan to sketch out a human body, then fill it with internal organs, bones, blood, muscles, and the most important meridians. All of these were simulated with Zhen Yuan. The Zhen Yuan of a life and death king had already reached the level of imitation. Moreover, this was Yi Chen's own Zhen Yuan. Therefore, the simulation was naturally lifelike, without a trace of falsehood. The next step was the most important one, condensing the soul core. The only part of the human body that life and death kings couldn't simulate was the soul ocean. The soul ocean was infinitely small, yet infinitely large. It was miraculous, and its structure was extremely stable. This was also the main reason why soul attacks couldn't destroy the opponent's soul. The soul core was naturally not as stable as the soul ocean, but it could at least hide the soul power inside without leaking out. In theory, a perfect consciousness avatar could exist for countless years without dissipating. Done. Looking at the consciousness avatar in front of him that looked exactly the same as him, and even had the same aura, Yi Chen revealed a trace of emotion and a sense of accomplishment. The consciousness avatar could be said to be an extension of oneself to a certain extent. Because it was the same soul, it could share information, and the martial skills that one had mastered could be used by the consciousness avatar as well. Of course, since the consciousness avatar was not the main body, its endurance was somewhat limited. Some martial skills that were too powerful would be somewhat difficult to use, such as the Heaven Wounding Sword with its powerful vibrating power. Even if the consciousness avatar could use it, it probably wouldn't be able to display its full might. Apart from this, the innate ability Soul Light couldn't be used either, since it involved the mysteries of the human body. Yi Chen could only simulate the human body, so how could he comprehend all the mysteries of the human body? The consciousness avatar existed in the meridians. Although it couldn't cultivate, it could still recover Zhen Yuan through martial arts. Originally, this consciousness avatar could have 1/3 of Yi Chen's cultivation base. However, Yi Chen's cultivation base was not enough, and he was also lacking supreme grade spirit stones. How could he pour in 1/3 of his cultivation base? He only stored 10 years' worth of cultivation base in the consciousness avatar. As far as he was concerned, the consciousness avatar was only used to protect eternal sky sect, just in case. He reckoned that there would be few opportunities to fight, so he could recover his Zhen Yuan in his free time. Taking out a mid-grade storage ring and the evil shattering sword, Yi Chun handed them over to the consciousness avatar. I can leave now. Without notifying Li Zhongfeng, Yi Chun directly tore open the space and escaped into the void. With 4-star battle strength, there was almost no place in this world that Yi Chun couldn't go. Moreover, Yi Chun was proficient in the space profound, and his escaping skills were absolutely top-notch. Let's go to chaotic demonic ocean first. Although Murong had left willingly with the demonic human emperor, it was still somewhat oppressive. Without strength, Yi Chun couldn't say anything. Now that he had strength, he naturally had the confidence to speak as an equal. Using his movement art, Yi Chun was like a fish, and the power of space was like water. In less than 2 hours, he arrived at the chaotic demonic ocean, which was surging with demonic chi. The chaotic demonic ocean was vast, but it was extremely easy to find the demonic human clan. One only needed to rush to the center of the ocean. Chaotic demonic ocean had a total of 10 great demonic human clans, and each of them occupied hundreds of islands. With the 10 great demonic human clans gathered together, they occupied thousands of islands, densely packed together. It was clear that only a small portion of the islands here were natural. Most of them had been moved here from other places. These thousands of islands faintly formed the shape of a flower. In the position of the flower stamen were 5 black lotus islands. Palaces sat on these islands, and demon chi surged. In the middle of the Lotus Island Palace, the demonic human emperor's eyes opened wide, revealing a trace of astonishment. He's here so quickly. Interesting. Seems like he's the one who caused such an uproar a while ago. I wonder what level his strength has reached. Since he dares to come here, it shouldn't be low, right? The demonic human emperor was just a general term for demonic monarchs, not her title. Her title was Demon Flower Emperor. Demons had many branches, and the Demon Flower Emperor had half human bloodline and half flower demon bloodline. She could innately control the demonic flower and recover her own demonic power by absorbing its demonic power. Bone Demon, let's test his strength. Demon Flower Emperor sent a soul transmission to a nearby demonic human king. Yes, who dares intrude on my chaotic demonic island? There were 10 great clans in a demonic human clan, and each clan had a demonic human king. However, most life and death kings knew that there were more than 10 demonic human kings in chaotic demonic ocean. There were definitely more than 15. Therefore, as soon as Yi Chun arrived above the islands, he was immediately discovered. Following a loud shout, 5 black figures flew out from different islands and blocked Yi Chun's path. One of these 5 was precisely the demonic human king who had chased after Yi Chun before. It's you. The demonic human king was startled. Flash Demon, you know him? One of the demonic human kings asked. I know him. He's Yi Chun. Yi Chun? It's him. Could it be that the deluge of heavenly flowers a while ago was caused by him? Hearing these words, the other 4 demonic human kings didn't dare to look down on Yi Chun. Once a genius entered life and death realm, their battle strength would be extraordinary. Moreover, Yi Chun was a peak genius ranked first in life and death substitute list. Long time no see. Sizing up the Flash Demon King, a faint smile appeared on Yi Chun's face. Yi Chun, why have you come to my disordered demon island? The Flash Demon King asked. The demonic human emperor should know that I'm here. Why hasn't he come out to see me? Yi Chun's gaze pierced through countless islands and landed on the Lotus Island at the center. It was a vast expanse of haze. Clearly, it was covered by a soul stone array. Soul power couldn't penetrate it and see what was inside. If the Patriarch wants to see you, he will naturally see you. If there's nothing else, leave quickly. The Flash Demon King didn't like Yi Chun at all. He had suffered a huge loss at the hands of a ladder, and was beaten miserably by Yuan Emperor's projection. Are you trying to probe my strength? Yi Chun looked pensive. Yi Chun, this is the Disorder Demon Island. It's not a place where you can come and go as you please. I advise you to leave quickly. The strongest among the 5, The demonic human king shouted, "Since you want to probe my strength, I'll let you have a look." Yi Chen muttered to himself. Sword domain suddenly spread out, enveloping the five. Pung 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 pung. The enormous sword pressure sent the five flying, unable to stop their bodies. Chapter 9:17. Sword domain has reached the second layer. Inside the palace, Demon Flower Emperor revealed an astonished expression. As far as she knew, the improvement of sword domain was extremely difficult. The second layer seemed low, but it was actually very high. Sky Sword Continent's Blue Cloud Sword Emperor's sword domain was merely at the peak of the third layer. However, once a Life and Death Sword King obtained sword domain, they would be unstoppable when battling kings of the same level. Arrogant. The sword pressure brought by sword domain only sent the five flying back, not injuring them. The Flash Demon King flew into a rage out of humiliation and struck out with a palm strike. A black crack imprinted itself on Yi Chen's body. It was precisely the Demon Mark Annihilation martial skill he had used during his battle with Yuan Emperor's projection. It was tyrannical and overbearing. The other four also used their killing moves, wanting to give Yi Chen a show of strength. Although Yi Chen had 4-star battle strength, in terms of defense, he was no different from a 1-star king. Therefore, he naturally wouldn't be careless and allow the five to land their attacks on his body. Among these five, 2 were 1-star kings, 2 were 2-star kings, and the strongest was a 3-star king. The five joined hands, creating a huge momentum. Unfortunately, their opponent was Yi Chen. Treading on the void, Yi Chen appeared dozens of li away as if he had teleported. The five's attacks missed. Space profound. The pupils of the strongest among the five shrank. Patriarch had asked him to probe Yi Chen's strength. But even before the latter made a move, he already felt that he might not be his opponent. 3-star Overlord or 4-star? His strength was at the peak of 3-star. If Yi Chen were a 3-star Overlord, he might be able to roughly estimate the latter's strength. But if he were a 4-star Overlord, it would be impossible. I am Bone Demon King. I would like to ask for pointers. Bone Demon King's muscles were small, and his bones were thick. He was tall and skinny, and his weapon was a bone spear. The spear tip flickered with a cold light, seeming even sharper than metal. Yi Chen glanced at the Flash Demon King and the other 3. Seeing that they had retreated quite a bit, he said to the Bone Demon King, "Make your move." He also knew that there was a gap between him and the demonic human emperor. Now that he was in the demonic human emperor's territory and the demonic human emperor wanted to test his strength, he naturally had to reveal some of his strength. Otherwise, what was the point of him coming here? Dark Bone Prison. The Bone Devil King's left-hand seal changed, and he let out a low shout before he suddenly closed his palms. Kalala! In the void, countless white bones condensed out of thin air and rapidly assembled, finally forming a huge cage of white bones, trapping Yi Chen inside. Above the cage of white bones, demonic energy roiled, forming black vortexes. As soon as these vortexes appeared, the space around them immediately shattered, and the power of space became chaotic. Sealing the space? Being inside the white bone cage, Yi Chen could sense that the space power around him had become extremely violent. Right now, if he wanted to escape into the surreal space, it would be 10 times harder than before. If he was not strong enough, he might even be crushed by the space power and the dark whirlpool the moment he tried to escape into the surreal space. Dark stab. After doing all this, the Bone Devil King's figure flashed, and the white bone spear in his hand pierced towards Yi Chen. A black light condensed on the tip of the spear, and the black light was extremely devouring. The surrounding light was involuntarily drawn in, causing the space where the Bone Devil King went to become dark, and the trajectory of his stab could not be seen. Ding! In the next moment, in the dark void without a trace of light, bright sparks suddenly burst out. With the light from the sparks, one could see that the cage of white bones had a huge gap cut out. On the opposite side, the bone spear in the Bone Devil King's hand had disappeared, and his right arm was dripping with blood, hanging limply at the side of his body. Puffed! A mouthful of blood spurted out. The Bone Devil King only felt that his whole body was sore and weak, and he could not exert any strength at all. Yi Chen's sword that contained the power of vibration had not only knocked away his bone spear, but also crippled his right arm. It had also caused internal damage to his body. In a short period of time, his combat power would not even be 10%. 4-star combat power. It's definitely 4-star combat power. The Bone Devil King sucked in a breath of cold air. The darkness dispersed, and so did the white bone cage. Yi Chen did not look at the Bone Devil King. His gaze pierced through the void, landing on the Lotus Island at the center of the countless islands. The Bone Devil King was only a peak 3-star combat power, and naturally could not make him use his full strength. That sword just now was just an ordinary vibrational sword arts, but it was already enough. With his 4-star combat power and mastery of space profound, it was enough to explain the problem. Bone Devil, you all go down. At this moment, the Demon Flower Emperor transmitted his soul to the 5-Bone Devil King and the others. Yes, the 5-Bone Devil King and the others gave Yi Chen a complicated look, and their figures flickered, flying back to their own islands. Yi Chen, come over for a chat. The Demon Flower Emperor transmitted his soul to Yi Chen again. Clang! Putting away the Sky Scorpio sword, Yi Chen flew towards the Lotus Island. On the east side of the Lotus Island, there was a 300-jong pond. Black lotus flowers as big as millstones floated above the pond. They were sparkling like jade, and their blooming flower buds were emitting black light. Clearly, they were not ordinary. In the middle of the pond, there was an even bigger lotus, and on top of it was a pavilion. On the pavilion's 3rd floor, the Demon Flower Emperor was brewing tea, and the fragrance of the tea permeated the air. Space rippled. A faint cyan light flickered, and Yi Chen appeared on the pavilion's 3rd floor. Please sit. Dressed in luxurious black clothes, the Demon Flower Emperor extended his hand in invitation. Yi Chen frowned, but didn't sit down. Instead, he said, "A dignified human demon emperor, why don't you dare to show your real body?" With one glance, he could tell that the Demon Flower Emperor in front of him was only a consciousness projection. The Demon Flower Emperor's eyebrows twitched, surprise flashing in her eyes. Good eyesight, but you misunderstand. My real body is still in the starry sky, and I can't find time. Moreover, I'm not your little lover. Seeing my real body and consciousness projection won't make any difference, right? As she spoke, she lifted the teapot and poured a cup of flower tea for Yi Chen. A flower fragrance that Yi Chen had never smelled before spread out, raising his spirit. Good tea. Yi Chen sat down, picked up the teacup, and took a sip, feeling the soothing feeling that the tea brought to his mind. Of course it's good tea. This is the famous black mandala flower tea of the demons. It can nourish the soul and adjust the mental state. But since your soul is full, just treat it as a pleasure. Putting down the teacup, Yi Chen asked, "Is Murong here?" She is currently comprehending the path of life and death. She won't be able to come out for a while. She can comprehend the path of life and death without leaving her house. Yi Chen was a bit baffled. The Demon Flower Emperor explained, "Every race has a different way of comprehending the path of life and death. It's fine as long as you can comprehend it. But for you to comprehend the path of life and death so quickly, it's more or less beyond my expectations." Yi Chen's growth speed was too shocking. Now, he already had 4-star battle prowess. The Demon Flower Emperor truly regarded him as an equal existence. What needed to be explained, she would more or less explain. After all, with Yi Chen's rate of improvement, perhaps in a few years, the entire Elysium would revolve around him, and he would become one of the most respected people. The status of the demonic human race was awkward, and there would be many dangers in the future. At this time, it was even more important to build a good relationship with Yi Chen. Murong Qingsheng was currently comprehending the path of life and death, so Yi Chen didn't want to dwell too much on this topic. Changing the topic, he said, "Senior should know quite a bit about the demons, right?" The Demon Flower Emperor slowly nodded, "Quite a bit. I wonder if you could tell me a bit about the demons." Yi Chen didn't know much about the demons. From his point of view, the Demon Flower Emperor, as the descendant of the demons and humans, should know a bit. The Demon Flower Emperor didn't answer directly and said, "Do you know how the demons came to Elysium?" "I don't." Yi Chun shook his head. "You should know about the Sky Sword Continent Sky Sword, right?" Putting down the teacup in his hand, the Demon Flower Emperor said slowly, "In the ancient era, Elysium's kings were as numerous as the clouds, and it was extremely powerful. One day, a huge sword descended from the sky and tore apart the barrier of Elysium, ultimately landing on True Spirit Continent. Because the Sky Sword's might was too great, the entire continent was divided into 3 parts, becoming the present True Spirit Continent, Blood Sky Continent, and Sky Sword Continent. Sky Sword Continent was the core of the Sky Sword's might. However, the true danger wasn't the Sky Sword, but the otherworldly experts that followed it. There were demons, as well as other otherworldly races. The Sky Sword's divine might was unparalleled. After the world barrier was torn apart, it unexpectedly lost its ability to block the outside world for a short period of time. Those otherworldly experts who entered Elysium would at most suffer the suppression of Elysium's rules, but they wouldn't be harmed in the slightest. After all, Elysium is a world with abundant resources and countless treasures. Otherworldly experts had the intention to invade this place, so a great war broke out between them and the otherworldly experts of Elysium in ancient times. This war engulfed the entire Elysium, and battles broke out in every corner. In the beginning, there weren't many otherworldly experts, and they couldn't do much. However, as more and more otherworldly experts entered, the level of the war also increased until it was a battle of life and death. In this long war, the humans and demons of Elysium were naturally very powerful. Among the otherworldly races, the strongest were the demons. The demons led the otherworldly races and forced the humans and demons into a desperate situation, almost taking control of Elysium. However, at that time, the world barrier that was torn apart by the Sky Sword slowly repaired itself. If the demons and otherworldly races wanted to enter, they would have to pay a huge price in terms of strength. With the advantage in numbers and the oppression of the enemy in Elysium, the humans and demons gradually gained the upper hand. In the end, they annihilated the otherworldly army that invaded Elysium and sealed some otherworldly experts that couldn't be killed. From then on, Elysium was saved. Unfortunately, although Elysium was saved, the powerful kings at that time were almost all dead. The demons and other otherworldly races took this opportunity to seal the entrances and exits of Elysium, preventing any Elysium experts from leaving. Entrances and exits. Yichen seemed to have thought of something. The Demon Flower Emperor explained, "It used to be the entrances and exits. After the martial artists of Elysium reach life and death realm, they can enter and exit at will. But now, the entrances and exits have become dead ends. Since ancient times, countless kings have died on that dead end, killed by otherworldly experts. Their goal is to prevent Elysium from ever developing. This is because in Elysium, the rules limit the lifespan of humans to 1,000 years. But walking out of Elysium, one can break free from the restrictions of Elysium's rules, increasing one's lifespan by 100 times. Humans can live for 100,000 years." The Demon Flower Emperor revealed a piece of information that shocked Yi Chun. Chapter 918. 100,000 years. No wonder Senior Dragon King wants to go to the path of death. If he doesn't do it, he can only wait for death. If he does it, there's at least a glimmer of hope. Once he succeeds, his lifespan will reach 100,000 years, and he won't have to worry about the end of his life. Moreover, with enough time, his battle prowess will increase steadily. Reaching 6 or 7 star is just a matter of time. While Yichen was shocked, he suddenly understood. Since the ancient times, no one has been able to go through it. Yichen asked. Demon Flower Emperor said, "Of course there are. Some relied on their strength, and some relied on heaven-defying luck. However, no matter if it's strength or luck, no one has ever returned. If Elysium wants to be truly powerful, there must be a group of rulers who are comparable to the ancients or a ruler who surpasses the ancients. Otherwise, Elysium will sooner or later fall into the hands of otherworldly experts." I'm afraid that even if there's a group of rulers who are comparable to the ancients or a ruler who surpasses the ancients, they will only be able to protect themselves. Yichen wouldn't be so optimistic. In the ancient times, Elysium was already so miserable, let alone the current era. Unless that ruler surpasses the ancients is so powerful that it's heaven-defying. It's already not bad to be able to protect myself. After all, there is still hope. Demon Flower Emperor smiled bitterly. That's true. Yichen nodded slightly. Her gaze fell on Yichen. Demon Flower Emperor said, I can see that your battle prowess is at least above 4-star. In addition to your space profound, there aren't many in the entire Elysium who can deal with you. Demon Flower Emperor's eyesight was very powerful. When Yichen dealt with Bone Devil King, he obviously didn't use his full strength. As for how much strength he used, she didn't know. However, what really caught her attention was that Yichen's attainment in Space Profound was very high. Space Profound was one of the strongest profound. There were very few people who were proficient in it. Even if Yichen's Space Profound wasn't in the top 3, it was at least in the top 5. You flatter me. Yichen didn't feel proud at all. With the Space Upanishad, there weren't many people who could deal with him, but it wasn't certain that there were only a few of them. The world he lived in wasn't a materialistic world. In this world, there were all kinds of strange techniques. It was just that he hadn't met them yet, or maybe he didn't have the chance to meet them. I want to make a deal with you, but I don't know if you dare. Shaking his head, the Demon Flower Emperor suddenly said, What deal? Yichen had some guesses, but he wasn't sure. The full support of the demonic human clan and 2 million true essence crystals. Not to mention the great significance of the support of the demi-demon clan. The 2 million Zhen Yuan crystals alone were priceless, enough to tempt any life and death realm warrior. 2 million Zhen Yuan crystals? Are you from the Blackwater Alliance? Yichen made a connection. Zhen Yuan crystals were something that no life and death realm warrior would be willing to make in large amounts to increase their cultivation base. If they really did so, they would be idiots. Condensing Zhen Yuan crystals for their own cultivation would be pointless. As for giving them to the younger generation, they wouldn't need so much. Moreover, 2 million Zhen Yuan crystals would take a long time to condense. Therefore, there is only one way to obtain a large amount of Zhen Yuan crystals from the outside. That's right. I'm also one of the people who knows about the Devouring Island. It's impossible for the Blackwater Alliance to monopolize the Devouring Island. Without a backer, the 2 Blackwater Alliances will be annihilated. Apart from me, there's another titled monarch who's working with them. The Devil Flower Emperor, as an emperor human demonic king, had a large share of the true essence crystals. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to casually take out 2 million true essence crystals for a transaction. It must be known that the human demonic race was also a large family. Aside from her, who was a perfect human demonic beauty, the true essence crystals were useful to the other human demonic kings. What condition? Yichen asked. It's very simple. When you have the strength in the future, you can take care of the demi-demon clan. The Demon Flower Emperor replied. This condition is too vague. If the demi-demon clan betrays Elysium, do you think I will help them fight against the entire Elysium? Don't worry. If the demi-demon clan really betrays Elysium, the condition will be invalid. Yichen thought for a while and suddenly understood. The Demon Flower Emperor's deal with him was not to guard against Elysium, but against the demons. The demons had always been domineering. They would definitely recruit the demi-demon clan. If the demi-demon clan didn't comply, it would naturally arouse the dissatisfaction of the demons. Moreover, the humans and beasts of Elysium had some misunderstanding with the demi-demon clan. At that time, whether they would help the demi-demon clan or not was uncertain. At the very least, they would not be duty-bound. In this way, the demi-demon clan would be stuck in the middle. It could be said that it was full of danger. A slight carelessness could lead to the extinction of the entire clan. The Demon Flower Emperor was alone, so her role was too small. Of course, as for what the Demon Flower Emperor was thinking, outsiders could only guess. No one could read anyone's mind. Obviously, the other had taken a fancy to Yichen's potential. Right now, Yichen already had 4-star battle power. In the near future, he would definitely reach 5 stars, or even 6 stars. At that time, a single word from him would carry a lot of weight. As long as the demi-demon clan didn't betray them, perhaps because of one word from him, they would be safe. All right, Yichen agreed. This condition of the Demon Flower Emperor was not excessive. Not to mention, the other party was Murong's teacher, and Murong herself was a member of the Demi-Demon clan. If the day really came and the Demi-Demon clan was in trouble, Yichen would not just stand by and watch. 2 million Jin Yuan crystals were very useful to him. It could increase his cultivation by another 50 years, reaching more than 230 years. I believe that you will keep your promise. A smile appeared on the Demon Flower Emperor's face. In her opinion, Yichen reaching 5-star battle power was 100% certain. In the future, he would definitely be a powerful support for the Demi-Demon clan. If he could reach 6-star battle power, the possibility of the Demi-Demon clan surviving this crisis would be very high. Adding on the growth of Murong Qingsheng, the situation was very optimistic. Senior, don't worry. Yichen has always taken promises very seriously. Yichen said solemnly. Here are 2 million Zhen Yuan crystals. Nodding, the Demon Flower Emperor took out a storage ring and handed it over to Yichen. Taking the storage ring, Yichen didn't even look at it and directly put it away. All right, I've only told you about the origin of the demons, but I haven't told you the details yet. After the deal was done, the Demon Flower Emperor's mood lightened up. She said, the world barrier is the protective layer of a world. It contains the rules of this world. Apart from the entrance, no other place can enter or leave. Although the entrance can be entered or left at will, this is only for the people of this world. If the experts of other worlds enter through the entrance, they will suffer the backlash of the rules, which will greatly damage their bodies and souls. Because of the many factors of battle power, if one forcefully enters a world, the amount of damage would vary, but there is a general standard. 5-star king forcefully enters, which will decrease by 1 star. 6-star king forcefully enters, which will decrease by 1.5 stars. 7-star king forcefully enters, which will decrease by 2 stars. The higher one's strength, the higher the price one has to pay to enter a world. In recent years, there have been many experts from other worlds who have entered. Some have high strength, but none of them could truly threaten Elysium. They could only hide in the dark. Back then, the 9 underworld demon king that wreaked havoc in South River region was actually a demon king of demons. Its strength was 5-star. Later, it was chased by Dragon King and Xianhou, but it did not die in the end. At that time, Dragon King's battle power was 5-star, while Xuanhou's was high-level 4-star. 9 underworld demon king is a demon king of demons. It was Yichen's first time hearing about it. As for Dragon King and Xianhou being able to chase 9 underworld demon king to such an extent, it was easy to understand. Dragon King himself had 5-star battle power, which was more or less the same as 9 underworld demon king. Although Xuanhou's battle power was high-level 4-star, it did not mean that a high-level 4-star battle power could not threaten a 5-star king. For example, Yichen had 4-star battle power, but if he stood still, he would still be killed by someone weaker than him. If the two of them joined hands, it would be normal for them to heavily injure 9 underworld demon king. The true threat of Elysium is those powerful beings from other worlds that have been sealed. Sealing has its pros and cons. On the pro side, it can seal those powerful beings that cannot be killed and gradually whittle away their power and vitality. On the pro side, it can slow down the flow of time. Those powerful beings from other worlds that were sealed in ancient times and medieval times might not be dead yet. Once they are unsealed, although they will be very weak, their bodies have already become familiar with the rules of Elysium after tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. Therefore, they will not be suppressed too much. As long as they have treasures that can recover their power, they will be able to quickly reach their peak state. At that time, it will truly be the doomsday of Elysium. Sealing extended their lifespan, but also whittled away their power. Those who survived were all peerless powerful beings. Yichen understood what Demon Flower Emperor meant. Those who were not powerful had all been sealed and killed. The power and vitality of a being was limited, so those who were not powerful would naturally be lacking something. Those who were truly powerful had all survived. Can you not find those sealed places? Yi Chen asked. Demon Flower Emperor shook his head. Some of the sealed places can be found, but some have disappeared from their original positions for some unknown reason. Nobody can find them. Moreover, too much time has passed, and some of the sealed places have changed due to some special reasons. So far, there are only a few sealed places in Elysium that are being monitored. That should be the case. Time was the most powerful weapon. Too many things had happened in the past hundreds of thousands of years, so many that they were innumerable. Suddenly, Yi Chen recalled that he had once been possessed by a demonic will in the underground cave of Sky Marshal region. That demonic will was extremely frightening. At that time, if not for the protection of Dragon King's will, his destruction sword intent would not have improved, and he would have been possessed. Could it be that there was also a powerful being from another world sealed there? Very likely. Yi Chen's brows creased. Chapter 919. The otherworldly experts that entered Elysium can find the sealed experts of their own race through a special method. Since their strength has been severely damaged, and the seals were set up by the powerful titled monarchs of ancient times, it is extremely difficult to unseal them. However, one day they will successfully unseal them, and once they unseal one, they will unseal the second one. This situation is very disadvantageous to us. Sighing, the Demon Flower Emperor said with a solemn expression, if Elysium wants to break this situation, we can only make two plans. The first is to find the hiding place of the otherworldly experts and join hands to kill them, ruining their plan to unseal them. The second is to find a lucky chance and work hard to increase our strength. I don't know if it is because Elysium has sensed the impending crisis, but this generation's geniuses are much more numerous than usual. It seems that starting from Xianhou, a new era has begun. If this is true, it won't take many years for Elysium to have a war of life and death, continuing the unfinished war of the ancient times. The Demon Flower Emperor's voice became more and more solemn, and his tone became gloomier. Find a hiding place of the otherworldly experts. Yi Chen's eyebrows twitched. With the eye of the soul, his probing ability could be said to be unparalleled in this world. Everything within 1 billion miles was within his observation range. Although the base of the otherworldly experts would definitely have many concealing formations and restrictions, as long as he spent some time, he would be able to find some clues. Unfortunately, he didn't have a time now. The eye of the soul could allow him to see anything within 1 billion miles, but to find some hidden things, it wasn't that easy. He had to search inch by inch and then carefully distinguish them. The amount of information was too large, and it was impossible to finish processing it in 1 or 2 days. As for how many days it would take, it would depend on his luck. If his luck wasn't good, he might not find anything in a year or so. He couldn't waste time on this at such a crucial time, as the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. At the very least, he had to increase his combat power to the point where it couldn't be increased in a short period of time before he could divert his attention to other things. Exhaling softly, Yi Chen said calmly, "We'll deal with whatever comes our way. It won't be easy for the powerful beings from the other worlds to invade Elysium. Of course, it won't be easy for us to protect Elysium as well. Since it won't be easy for everyone, then it's equivalent to standing on the same starting point. Why should we be afraid of them? Who will laugh in the end will depend on our own abilities." Hearing this, the Demon Flower Emperor looked at Yi Chen in astonishment. As expected of a swordsman, your imposing manner is indomitable. You are able to explain complicated matters in simple terms. Indeed, we are standing at the same starting point. If we lose, it means that we are not qualified to possess Elysium. We can't blame anyone. Sometimes, when one's state of mind was different, one's view of things would also be different. In a situation where things could not be salvaged, having a good state of mind was always better than having a bad state of mind. Rumble. Right at this moment, the huge Lotus Island suddenly trembled slightly. The demon chi surged even more violently. Ordinary people might not be able to sense this kind of tremble, or they might even ignore it. However, For Yi Chun and the Demon Flower Emperor, this kind of tremble was undoubtedly like a bolt from the blue. How could they not sense it? Frowning, Yi Chun released his soul power. Using his soul power, he could sense that within a radius of 100,000 miles, the demon Qi was rising stealthily. The waves of the sea were more violent than usual, hitting the reefs around the islands. And in the center of these countless islands, which were the 5 Lotus Islands, the demon Qi formed a beam of light that shot up into the sky. "Senior, what's going on?" Yi Chen asked. The Demon Flower Emperor didn't seem to be surprised by this situation. He explained, "The reason why I moved the 10 demonic human clans here is because there's a powerful demon Qi at the bottom of this ocean. Every few years, a demon Qi tide will occur. During the demon Qi tide, the density of the demon Qi will increase by 100-fold. To the members of our demonic human clan, this is the best time to cultivate. Take a look at these demon lotuses." The Demon Flower Emperor pointed at the black lotuses on the pond. Yi Chen looked over and noticed that the black lotuses on the pond were growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Originally, they were the size of a millstone, but in a short period of time, they had doubled in size. Some of the flower buds that had yet to blossom were also quietly blossoming, emitting a black light that tempted the soul. So that's the case. When Yi Chun and Murong Qingsheng first came to the Chaos Demonic Ocean, they felt that this place was unusual. Even the demon beasts in the water seemed to have undergone a mutation. So it turned out that it was caused by the powerful demon Qi at the bottom of the ocean. This place is known as the sacred land of the demonic humans. It's not a bad place. Yi Chen nodded. It was indeed better for Murong to train here than anywhere else. The demon Qi tide will last for about a month. Apart from the initial and final stages, the middle stages are very calm. The Demon Flower Emperor sighed and continued, "Unfortunately, when a world war breaks out, this place will become the first choice of the demons. Only by occupying this place will they be able to fight a protracted war with us. Senior, don't you find it strange that there's a place with powerful demon Qi in Elysium? I believe that there's something mysterious at the bottom of this ocean. I believe that Senior has your suspicions." The demon Qi in Elysium was sparse. The biggest problem for the demons was that they couldn't replenish their demon Qi. They could only rely on the treasures they carried with them. However, treasures would eventually be used up. It was fine for a short period of time, but once the war dragged on, it would be dangerous. The other party was right. In the future, the Chaos Demonic Ocean would most likely become the base of the demons. I went down to investigate, but I couldn't get close to the demon Qi core. The demon Qi there has a powerful assimilation effect. If I get close, I'll become a part of the demon Qi core. I won't be able to resist it. The Demon Flower Emperor smiled bitterly. "Oh, that's amazing." Saying so, Yi Chun released his soul force and probed the depths of the ocean. 100,000 meters. 300,000 meters, 1 million meters, 5 million meters, 10 million meters. At 10 million meters or 20,000 miles, the powerful demon Qi made it so that even soul force couldn't penetrate it. He could only sense darkness and boundless demon Qi everywhere. Amazing. Taking a deep breath, the space between Yi Chen's brows opened, and a silver vertical eye appeared. In the past, Yi Chen wouldn't expose his special abilities. But now, he already had 4-star battle prowess and was proficient in Space Profound. There was no need to hide it. Swish! The silver light beam was like a condensed light, penetrating the Lotus Island and looking down. This time, Yi Chen could see the demon Qi core below 20,000 miles. The powerful demon Qi only made his vision a little blurry, but it couldn't obstruct it. At a depth of 10,000 miles, Yi Chen finally saw the Chaos Demonic Ocean's demon Qi core. Is this it? Drawing with his true yuan, Yi Chen drew out what he saw in reality. The Demon Flower Emperor was startled by Yi Chen's soul eye. This was the first time she saw someone with a soul eye. Moreover, it seemed to be even more powerful than the legend said. Imperceptibly, Yi Chen's position in her eyes became even higher. With the soul eye, he could see everything in the world without even stepping out of his house. What Yi Chun had drawn out was a black prismatic crystal the size of an island. The two ends of the crystal were wrapped in bronze metal. The surface of the metal had countless patterns that flickered. Every time it flickered, a huge amount of demon chi would be released. During the process, the demon chi would be diluted into demon chi. Crack! The black crystal formed by Zhen Yuan shattered. Yi Chen's face turned pale. This thing was too mysterious. It had consumed a lot of his mental energy, and he couldn't maintain it for long. "Senior, did you see anything?" Yi Chun asked after taking a sip of the black mammoth flower tea. He felt much better. The demon flower emperor hesitated. "I don't know what this black crystal is, but the patterns on the bronze metal seem to be a transformation formation. It transforms the heaven and earth yuan qi into demon qi. After brewing, it condenses into extremely pure demon qi and releases it, forming a cycle. Heaven and earth yuan qi transforms into demon qi. This should be a treasure left behind from the ancient era. It is also the reason why the demons were able to invade Elysium. Treasures were also divided into different types. Some could increase one's strength, some could increase one's defense, and some could increase one's vitality. This black crystal was undoubtedly a strategic treasure. Most likely so. The Demon Flower Emperor felt a headache. She still didn't know that there was a terrifying treasure under the chaos demonic sea that could affect the war. This way, the demonic human race would be the first to face the demons. Time passed quickly, and the sun gradually set. Stay on the Lotus Island for a few more days. You can refine the true essence crystal into true essence. From the moment the transaction was made, the chaotic Demon Ocean's demonic human clan was walking on the same path as Yi Chun to a certain extent. One's glory, one's loss, one's loss. Yi Chun's strength was of enormous significance to the demonic flower emperor. Okay, Yi Chun didn't decline. He indeed needed time to refine the true essence crystal. Nothing was more reliable than his own cultivation. The night was as cold as water. Yi Chun was refining the true essence crystal on one of the Lotus Islands. This true essence crystal came from the same place as Yi Chun's true essence crystal. It didn't reach the low grade and could only be classified as a quasi-low grade true essence crystal. 2 days passed. 2 million true essence crystals were completely refined. On the other hand, Yi Chun's cultivation increased by another 50 years, reaching the level of 230 years. Although cultivation had the least effect on one's strength, unless the gap between the two was too big, the stronger one might not necessarily have the upper hand. However, there was an advantage to having a profound cultivation, and that was being able to fight. It should be known that operating the undying body required Zhen Yuan, and using powerful moves required Zhen Yuan as well. Without Zhen Yuan, what could one use to fight against others? Others could exhaust you to death. Cultivation was like an engine. Without it, no matter how good the other parts were, it would be useless. Time to return to true Spirit Continent. On this day, Yi Chun bid farewell to the Demon Flower Emperor and entered the void, rushing toward true Spirit Continent. Chapter 920. Back then, Yi Chun didn't know how long it had taken him to travel from true Spirit Continent to Blood Sky Continent. But this time, the time spent was 1,000 times shorter. It was as if there wasn't an endless ocean between them, but a river, a lake, and a bridge that would allow them to reach the other side. I'm finally back. On the coastline of true Spirit Continent, Yi Chun's figure appeared with a complicated expression. When he left, he only had the cultivation base of Sea of Soul Realm. But after returning, he was already a life and death king, and not an ordinary one at that. His cultivation base had reached 230 years, and his battle strength had skyrocketed to 4 stars. It could be said that the current him could kill 100 of his previous selves with a single sword strike. Times had changed. Although Senior Dragon King's life and death are unknown, his dragon god's celestial palace can't be encroached upon by others. Humph! Opening his silver vertical eye, Yi Chun's gaze pierced through half of the continent and landed on the dragon god's celestial palace in the eastern shallow ocean. That place had already changed masters, being occupied by Whirlwind Gate, Water Wave Sect, Black King Gate, and Sky Eagle Cult, divided into 4 parts. Moreover, Water Wave Sect still had a king overseeing it. Let me see what kind of trump cards you have. Puff. His figure turned illusory as Yi Chun dove into the void. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the space above the dragon god celestial palace distorted, and a figure walked out. His blue robes fluttered in the wind, and his expression was cold and solemn. Sucking in a deep breath, Yi Chun operated his Zhen Yuan and roared, "All those who aren't from Dragon God Celestial Palace, get the hell off this island." His voice wasn't loud at first, but as it spread out, it grew louder and louder. It was like a mountain torrent, a thunderbolt, and a torrential downpour. Everyone on the island heard this voice, especially the last "get the hell off." It was filled with killing intent, and its speed was extremely fast, piercing through one's soul like a swift sword. Who's so daring? Everyone on the island was stupefied. Whirlwind Gate, Black King Gate, Water Wave Sect. There was also the Heavenly Eagle Cult. It was unknown whether Dragon King was dead or alive. This island had long since become the common territory of the Eastern Shallow Ocean's 4 major powers. This news had already spread throughout True Spirit Continent and the surrounding seas. However, not a single person came to cause trouble. Even the world-famous Xianhou couldn't do anything to the 4 major powers. It was said that she was stopped by a powerful titled monarch. This made the other powers coveting Dragon God, Celestial Palace, even more afraid. They could only watch as the 4 major powers devoured everything. Now, someone actually dared to tell them to get the fuck out. Didn't they eat the guts of a leopard? He's simply courting death. Even Xianhou couldn't protect Dragon God, Celestial Palace, and he didn't even inquire about it. Perhaps it's the guy who received Dragon King's favor back then. He had been in seclusion for several decades and didn't know about the outside world. Seeing Dragon God, Celestial Palace changing owners, he couldn't accept it. Trouble comes from a mouth. Very well, let the people of the world know the consequences of offending us 4 great powers. On the island, the people from the 4 major forces discussed with disdain. Audacious. Which scoundrel is causing trouble here? From the western side of the small continent-like island, a figure flew over. He had a head full of gray hair and wore a dark green robe. He seemed to be in his 50s or 60s. The old man stood a few li away from Yi Chun. "You are?" The gray-haired old man was a bit hesitant. He seemed to feel that Yi Chun's face was familiar. "You're Yi Chun." Suddenly, the gray-haired old man shouted. He had seen Yi Chun's portrait. Back when the 4 major forces were probing Dragon God Celestial Palace, Yi Chun had helped Dragon God Celestial Palace heavily injure the 4 major forces, causing them to lose a lot of their core forces. As a result, Yi Chun had become a thorn in their flesh. "Not bad, I'm back." Yi Chun looked down at the other party. Yi Chun? Which Yi Chun? Could it be True Spirit Continent's Sword Master Yi Chun? It's really him. No wonder I felt a bit familiar. Due to the distance, the crowd couldn't see clearly. Only after hearing the gray-haired old man's words did they recognize him. When did he enter life and death realm? Could it be that the deluge of heavenly flowers a while ago was caused by him? Although I don't want to admit it, this Yi Chun is definitely the most frightening genius since Yuan Emperor. He seems to be in his early 30s. Yi Chun's fame was too great, so great that no one in the younger generation could compare to him. The 4 major forces also had geniuses, but compared to Yi Chun, they were like fireflies compared to the bright moon. There was simply no comparison. Even Duguju and Dantai Mingyue, who are currently at their peak, were a bit lacking compared to Yi Chun. And now, Yi Chun had unexpectedly become a life and death king. If this news were to spread, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Too bad, he's still too arrogant. He's just entered life and death realm, and he's already thinking of reviving Dragon God Celestial Palace. Who does he think he is? If I were him, I would have chosen to conceal my strength and bide my time. The discussions below didn't affect the 2 above. The gray-haired old man gloomily said, "Yi Chun, what are you doing here? Let me give you a word of advice. Don't cause trouble here. Otherwise, You won't be able to leave even if you want to. The gray-haired old man didn't dare to be careless. It was said that geniuses who entered life and death realm possessed extremely powerful battle strength. For example, Shinho had become a peak king not long after entering life and death realm. Therefore, he didn't have the confidence to defeat Yi Chun in a one-on-one battle. He planned to first persuade Yi Chun to retreat, then join hands with the other three to take him down. Leave? Why should I leave? You don't have the qualifications to say such words. If Yi Chun's guess wasn't wrong, the other party was the sect leader of Waterwave sect, the Waterwave King. Apart from Dragon God's Celestial Palace, the other four kings of Eastern Shallow Ocean were all high-step kings. Waterwave sect had Waterwave King, while Whirlwind Gate, Black King Gate, and Sky Eagle Cult had Whirlwind King, Black King King, and Sky Eagle King respectively. It was precisely because these four were all high-step kings that they could contend against Dragon God's Celestial Palace. Of course, with Dragon King's strength, he could actually surpass these four kings. Therefore, behind these four powers, there must be a powerful backer. Impudent. Since you don't want to leave, then don't. This was the first time Waterwave King was looked down upon by a youngster. Although Yi Chun's talent was exceptional, he didn't believe that Yi Chun could raise his battle strength to that extent in such a short time. On the other hand, he had 3-star battle strength and 800 years of cultivation base. He could grind the opponent to death. Flood Palm. With a furious roar, Waterwave King punched at Yi Chun. This palm contained the profound of water and earth. As it flew out, a flood overflowed the sky, ultimately condensing into a huge muddy palm. The space was immediately torn apart, shattering into pieces. Yi Chun unsheathed the Sky Scorpio sword, which immediately burst out with a resplendent golden light. He used the first style of vibrational sword arts, Sky Cutting Sword. With Waterwave King's battle strength, he wasn't worthy of Yi Chun using the second style of vibrational sword arts, Sky Cutting Sword. The muddy palm was cut apart, and the sword light containing berserk vibrational power shot toward Waterwave King. What sword art is this? Waterwave King was greatly shocked. His body turned into a stream of water and promptly dodged. Unfortunately, no matter how fast he was, he couldn't outrun the sword light. Puff! A small half of Waterwave King's body turned into a bloody mist, and even his internal organs were exposed. In the next moment, a mournful wail soared into the sky. This sword strike from Yi Chun made Waterwave King feel the threat of death. It should be known that he was neither Yi Chun nor Shinho. His undying body was only at the peak of Broken Limb Rebirth Realm. It would be extremely difficult for him to reach Flesh Derivation Realm in his lifetime. This was because Flesh Derivation Realm was not something ordinary people could reach. Ordinary life and death kings would either be stuck at the peak of Broken Limb Rebirth Realm for their entire lives, or have a fortuitous encounter and directly reach the early Blood Drop Rebirth Realm. Flesh Derivation Realm could allow life and death kings to comprehend the mysteries of undying body. When they reached Blood Drop Rebirth Realm in the future, they would be able to continue advancing all the way to the peak of Blood Drop Rebirth, or even perfection. Through a fortuitous encounter, they would be able to jump from Broken Limb Rebirth to Blood Drop Rebirth Realm. For example, a person with slightly inferior talent would find it difficult to reach life and death chamber. If they had a fortuitous encounter, they could directly become a life and death king, but their battle strength would not be high. On the other hand, a person with high talent would make the transition in life and death chamber. After becoming a life and death king, their battle strength would be extremely formidable, and they could instantly become a mid-step king or even a high-step king. Although Sky Cutting Sword was not Yi Chun's true killing move, it was still not something a high-step king could endure. Even if a part of its power was cancelled out by the Flood Palm, it still had enough power to kill Waterwave King. If not for the latter's movement technique being pretty good and dodging a bit, this sword would have taken his life. Junior, you're so vicious. Circulating the undying body, Waterwave King barely managed to restore his body. However, the peak level of limb regrowth wasn't very good for his torso. Thus, his injuries were extremely severe, and he only had 30 to 40% of his battle strength left. As he spoke, Water Wave King swallowed several glowing pellets. This time I won't kill you. Take your people and scram. Yichen didn't continue attacking. Water Wave King didn't pose much of a threat to him. Killing him would instead make the situation unmanageable. He was sure that the four factions had an extremely powerful backer. Otherwise, Xianhe wouldn't have failed to protect the Dragon God Celestial Palace, allowing it to fall into the hands of the four factions. You'll regret offending us, four factions. You'll definitely regret it. Water Wave King's complexion turned ashen. If you don't leave, I won't mind killing you. Yichen's eyes squinted, and his killing intent spread out bit by bit. Down below, the people of the four factions had long since been stupefied. One sword. Water Wave King couldn't even receive a single strike from Yichen. What kind of situation was this? Impossible. Water Wave King is a high-step king. How could Yichen defeat him with one sword and almost kill him? Don't tell me he's a peak king? High-step kings had 3-star battle strength, but even a 3-star tyrant couldn't be like Yichen, almost killing Water Wave King with one sword strike. Water Wave King was in a deadlock, as if waiting for something. Bang! 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 Right at this moment, the sky suddenly shattered, and 3 powerful figures walked out. Yichen, you're courting death. Yichen, don't leave this time. The newcomers were precisely the other 3 kings: Whirlwind King, Black King, and Sky Eagle King. Chapter 9:21. You're all here just in time. Yichen sneered as he glanced at Water Wave King, then shifted his gaze to Whirlwind King and the other 2. This kid is troublesome. Let's take him down together. Water Wave King arrived beside the 3 and said with a grave expression, Water Wave King, you're injured? Seeing Water Wave King's weak aura and pale face, Sky Eagle King asked, Don't look down on him. Although he entered life and death realm not long ago, he already has the strength of a peak king. I can only cooperate with you and use 2 killer moves. After that, I won't have any battle strength left. Although Water Wave King was heavily injured, he could still use his full strength twice. What? Peak king strength? Black King, with shiny skin and ugly face, was incomparably shocked. Right, I couldn't even receive a single sword strike from him. Although Water Wave King loved his face, he wouldn't deceive himself. He entered life and death realm not long ago. Even if he has the strength of a peak king, he should only be a low 4-star king. The 4 of us can contend against a mid 4-star king. There's no need to make a fuss. The one speaking was the strongest among the 4, Whirlwind King. Although they were all high-step kings with 3-star battle strength, there was still some disparity in strength. Among them, Water Wave King and Sky Eagle King were high 3-star battle strength. Black King was peak 3-star battle strength, and Whirlwind King was a true 3-star overlord, an unparalleled existence among high-step kings. Unfortunately, what Whirlwind King didn't know was that Yichen's battle strength was far from low 4-star. Moreover, even if Yichen's battle strength was low 4-star, the 4 still wouldn't be able to defeat him. First, Yichen had sword domain, which allowed Yichen to ignore the number of enemies to a certain extent. When dealing with Water Wave King, Yichen didn't even use sword domain. Second, Yichen was proficient in Space Profound. Be it dodging or speed, he far surpassed them. Not to mention Yichen's 4-star battle strength. In fact, even if Yichen was a 3-star overlord, he would be able to defeat Water Wave King, Sky Eagle King, and Black King one by one, and ultimately fight Whirlwind King to a draw. Of course, Whirlwind King's cultivation base was much deeper than his. You'll know once you try, Yichen said calmly. Whirlwind King glanced at Water Wave King, Sky Eagle King, and Black King. He said slowly and firmly, attack together. Hoo-hoo! A violent whirlwind was formed in an instant. It left the Whirlwind King's palm and blasted towards Yichen. This whirlwind contained wind blades that were condensed to the extreme. On the wind blades, there was a layer of golden light. It was the metal ultimacy. The wind ultimacy and the metal ultimacy fused together, causing the Whirlwind King's attack to be incomparably sharp and indestructible. Flood palm print. sky-tearing eagle claw, poisonous black cloud thorn. Immediately afterward, the Water Wave King and the other two also launched their attacks at Yi Chun. The power is not weak. Yi Chen's figure became illusory. With a puff, his figure disappeared. Yi Chen disappeared from where he was. A transparent ripple followed the gap between the chi forces and quickly passed through. Then, it instantly appeared in front of Water Wave King. It was not teleportation, but it was comparable to teleportation. The heaven-shattering sword art's second move, Orbital Slash, allowed Yi Chun to grasp how to follow the spatial ripple's trajectory and pass through with the fastest speed. Of course, compared to sword arts, it was at least several times harder to achieve this with a movement skill. But it was enough. No, Water Wave King roared. He struck a palm at Yi Chun, who suddenly appeared. His palm, which was wearing a dark green glove, was wrapped in a turbid chi force. The power was majestic and vast, each wave stronger than the one before. Yi Chun sneered and slashed horizontally with his sword. Buzz! The palm and sword collided. The turbid chi force released by Water Wave King was instantly shattered. Then, an invisible ripple passed through Water Wave King's palm. Boom! Water Wave King's right arm exploded into a bloody mist. The bones in his body cracked and cracked. His whole body was like a broken sack, blown away. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. Restraining my strength doesn't feel good either. Yi Chen didn't kill Water Wave King. He just made him completely lose his fighting strength. After all, he was not alone. If he angered the people behind the four forces, even if they couldn't kill him, they would definitely take revenge. Before he was ready, he didn't want to fight to the death with them. Therefore, that sword attack just now was just an ordinary vibrational sword art. However, at close range, its lethality was especially strong, and the power of vibration was also the strongest. Die! Seeing Water Wave King being blown away, Black King's ferocious nature burst out. His body suddenly turned into a huge black octopus. 8 tentacles covered the sky, and one of them entangled towards Yi Chun. Swoosh! The sword light shone brightly, and Black King's tentacle was cut off. Eagle Flurry Dance. Not far away, Sky Eagle King took advantage of this opportunity to condense his demonic energy into several fierce eagles, blotting out the sky and covering the earth as they swarmed toward Yi Chun. These eagles were vivid and lifelike. Apart from lacking intelligence, they were no different from real eagles. Each of them had a low 1-star battle strength and could easily kill a large group of ordinary kings. However, compared to Whirlwind King, Sky Eagle King's attack was much weaker. Whirlwind King, who was wrapped in whirlwind, formed a hand seal with one hand and pointed at the sky with the other. In the next instant, wind spears dozens of meters long containing golden light descended from the sky, forming a killing array that enveloped Yi Chun. Metal Wind Killing Array. With the help of Metal Wind Killing Array, Whirlwind King had once fought dozens of rounds with a low-level 4-star king. In the end, he managed to escape without suffering the slightest injury. However, all of this was futile. Ever since entering life and death realm, Yi Chun had already displayed the space profound to the utmost. Before, he couldn't use it because his Zhen Yuan and soul power were not strong enough. But now, his Zhen Yuan was much purer than ordinary life and death kings, and his soul power was also 10 times that of ordinary kings. In his hands, the space profound was like a fish in the water, and he could use it with ease. Puff! Yi Chen's figure disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already above Black King. Go down! Holding the sword with one hand, Yi Chun slashed down, striking Black King's huge body. The formless ripple was like a cannonball. Not only did it shatter all of Black King's tentacles, it even caused many cracks to appear on its body. With a swish, Black King's naked body smashed into the ground, stirring up huge ripples and creating a frightening crater on the island below. Blood gushed out. Humph! After doing all this, Yi Chen suddenly glanced at Sky Eagle King, who was about to launch another attack. Sky Eagle King's body stiffened. Yi Chen's gaze brought him an incomparably frightening pressure. It was as if countless swords were stabbing into his eyes, stabbing into his sea of soul. Among kings, there were two kinds of kings that were the most frightening. One was body-refining kings, and the other was kings with formidable willpower. The former was powerful in close combat, while the latter was overwhelmingly powerful. Yi Chen's destruction sword soul was at the 6th step, which was equivalent to an ordinary 7th step sword intent. Moreover, his soul power was 10 times that of an ordinary life and death king's. With a single gaze, he could make Sky Eagle King, who had a battle strength of 3-star, stiffen his body. Chapter 922. Whirlwind King did not see the look in Yi Chen's eyes. Seeing Sky Eagle King's body suddenly freeze. Although it was a bit strange, he did not think too much about it. He only thought that Sky Eagle King was frightened by Yi Chen's methods. Gold Wind Flurry Cut. Whirlwind King's long-range attacks were all dodged by Yi Chen, not even touching a shadow. This time, Whirlwind King's entire body turned into a powerful whirlwind, sweeping toward Yi Chen. As he neared, golden wind blades shot out one after another, filling the sky. Facing Whirlwind King's all-out attack, Yi Chen didn't bat an eyelid. The Sky Scorpio sword slanted upwards, using the first style of sky-shattering sword arts, bewitching mirror shattering. The twisting spatial power directly twisted the countless golden wind blades into nothingness, as if they had never existed. Then, the berserk spatial power instantly solidified, sealing Whirlwind King. Pum! The next moment, the purple mirror-like solidified space power shattered into millions of pieces, and the spinning space fragments cut deep bloody wounds on Whirlwind King's body. Some of the larger space fragments directly sawed off Whirlwind King's arms and legs. If it were not for Whirlwind King strengthening his protective Zhen Yuan with all his might, so many space fragments would have definitely turned him into nothingness, leaving not even a corpse behind. With Yi Chen's strength, the outdated bewitching mirror shattering still had a frightening might. If not for Yi Chen holding back, this sword would have killed Whirlwind King. Of course, even so, Whirlwind King's battle power had already been reduced to 80%, and he did not have much power to counterattack. In the end, only Sky Eagle King was left. Sky Eagle King recovered from his stupor. When he saw this scene, his expression was extremely unsightly, and there was a faint trace of wariness. A single gaze was enough to make his body stiff. How was he supposed to fight? Kings that cultivated will were always kings among kings. Even body refinement kings were much weaker than willpower kings. Kings with extremely powerful will could even make ordinary kings faint with a single gaze. Yi Chen, I advise you to think clearly whether you really want to start a war with our 4 forces. You should know that it's not without reason that our 4 forces could contend against Dragon God Celestial Palace for so many years. King Taning had lost the thought of fighting Yi Chen, but from the looks of it, he seemed to be sure that Yi Chen would not dare to completely fall out with them. Tell me, maybe I'll change my mind. Yi Chen, on the other hand, wanted to know which titled monarch was supporting the 4 powers from behind, opposing the Dragon God Celestial Palace. The Sky Eagle King hesitated for a moment before he said, "You should have heard of the ancient 100 beasts, the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe. The 4 great factions and the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe are in a cooperative relationship. Although you can defeat the 4 great factions today, you'll have to bear the wrath of the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe in the future. This is not a wise decision." After that, Sky Eagle King sized up Yi Chen, carefully observing the changes on his face. Red-eyed Black Dragon. A trace of realization flickered in Yi Chen's heart. The red-eyed Black Dragon was not a true dragon, but a powerful flood dragon. Among the ancient 100 beasts, it was a demonic beast with top 5 aptitude. The red-eyed Black Dragon tribe was naturally a demonic beast race. They usually moved in the eastern deep sea, where they were overlords that no one dared to provoke. As an overlord, the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe's experts were as numerous as the clouds in the sky. Just the demonic kings alone numbered 4, and the most powerful one was a titled monarch called the Black Dragon Old Ancestor. Speaking of the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe, one couldn't help but mention the Dragon King. The Dragon King also had the Flood Dragon bloodline, and seemed to have some relationship with the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe. Many people suspected that the Dragon King was actually a member of the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe, but for some reason, he had separated from the tribe and established his own sect, establishing the Dragon God Celestial Palace. If it was the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe supporting the four great factions, then everything would make sense. Otherwise, how could the four great factions resist the 5-star battle strength of Xianhou without any support? The red-eyed Black Dragon tribe is indeed quite powerful. Yichen was not lying. The red-eyed Black Dragon tribe was an overlord in the entire Elysium. Since you also know that you can't handle the anger of the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe, you should leave now. There is still time. This time, let's just treat it as a misunderstanding. Any king warrior was worthy of respect, not to mention that Yi Chun had a 4-star battle strength. If they lost, then so be it. In this world, the strong ruled, and one's fist did the talking. Moreover, because of Yi Chun's power, the Sky Eagle King did not dare to make things difficult for Yi Chun. If a 4-star battle strength met a 5-star battle strength, he would lose without a doubt. But he would still have a chance to escape. Although the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe was powerful, they might not be able to kill Yi Chun. If they went too far, it would only result in both sides suffering. If Yi Chun had a 3-star battle strength, the result would be completely different. When a 3-star battle strength met a 5-star battle strength, the possibility of escaping unscathed was extremely low, almost negligible. It could be said that the peak-level kings of Elysium were the highest existences. Titled monarchs would not be willing to offend a peak-level king unless it involved their own interests. Sometimes they would even take a step back to avoid an intense conflict. Of course, peak-level kings were even more unwilling to offend titled monarchs, especially the slower ones. Yi Chun was currently a peak-level king, and his battle strength was obviously higher than a 4-star low-level. The Sky Eagle King was overbearing, using the red-eyed Black Dragon tribe to force Yi Chun to submit and ask for forgiveness. This was definitely an extremely stupid thing to do. Therefore, he chose to retreat in order to advance and let Yi Chun leave first. He did not dare to say anything else. The Sky Eagle King's thoughts were good, but unfortunately, Yi Chun's reply made him extremely surprised and angry. Let the Black Dragon ancestor talk to me. Yi Chun's attitude was extremely unyielding. Senior Dragon King had taken great care of him. For his sake, he was willing to become enemies with the heir emperor. How could he not repay such kindness? If he didn't have the strength, it would be fine. However, his current battle strength was not weak. If he was unwilling to stand up for Dragon God's Celestial Palace under such circumstances, then Yi Chun, would have lived in vain. How could he be worthy of Senior Dragon King? In the depths of the void, the white-clothed Xianhou faintly nodded with a relieved smile on her face. You've finally grown up. Old Dragon King, if you were still alive, you would definitely be gratified. If you were dead, you would be able to rest in peace in the underworld. However, I didn't expect him to be so sentimental, willing to stand up for Dragon God, Celestial Palace regardless of offending the Black Dragon ancestor. We didn't misjudge him. No, he's even more noble than we imagined. It was not that Xianhou didn't want to stand up for Dragon God, Celestial Palace. If Yi Chun wasn't afraid of the Black Dragon ancestor, why would she be? However, the bigger picture was the most important. She was waiting for Yi Chun to grow up completely. Once he became enemies with the red-eyed Black Dragon clan, Yi Chun would inevitably be affected. If anything happened to Yi Chun, all her efforts would be in vain.